Today, I will attempt to explain every single Resident Evil game in chronological order, creating a timeline of events that will make it easier for you to understand the entire story of this incredible franchise. Throughout the video, there will be a timeline animation at the bottom of the screen, which should make it easier to follow along and understand exactly when are certain events taking place. In total, there are 15 games I'll cover in this video, and there's no other place to start than where it all began, on the Arklay Mountains in 1998. Resident Evil 0. On the evening of July 23, 1998, an Umbrella-owned train, the Ecliptic Express, travels through the Arklay Mountains, where several Umbrella facilities are located. Observed from a mountaintop by a mysterious man singing a choir song, the train is attacked by a swarm of leeches, which break through the windows and attack the passengers. 2 hours later, unrelated to this incident, Bravo Team, a special police force, is sent to investigate a series of unexplained cannibalistic murders and animal attacks that have been occurring in the region. However, before they can land, their helicopter malfunctions and crashes into the woods. While pilot Kevin Dooley stays behind to fix the helicopter, the rest of the Bravo Team searches the surrounding area and discovers a wrecked military police vehicle. The drivers are dead, and Marines Lieutenant Billy Cohen, who was being transported as a prisoner, is missing. Assuming that Billy killed his guards and escaped, Captain of the Bravo Team, Enrico Marini, orders the team to search for him. While searching the Raccoon Forest, Rebecca Chambers, the team's medic, discovers that the Ecliptic Express has come to a halt and its lights are out. Upon further investigation, she finds bloodstains on the seats and is suddenly approached by a zombified passenger. More zombies soon surround her, but she manages to escape and heads towards the front of the train where she locates Billy, the escaped prisoner. Billy is uncooperative and refuses to be retained. Suddenly, Marini contacts Rebecca on the radio, unaware of the monsters, and informs her that he has found documents suggesting that Billy was sentenced to death for the murder of 23 people. While exploring the upper deck of the train, Rebecca encounters another man in a dining room who, upon her inquiry, transforms into a pile of leeches. Billy rushes in and saves Rebecca, which makes both of them slowly gain trust for each other. Umbrella security is ordered to move the train in order to investigate the attack. However, when the train starts moving, the men controlling it are suddenly attacked by leeches, leaving no one in control of the train. As it moves through the mountains, the train picks up speed. Realizing they might derail, Billy and Rebecca manipulate the brakes on the front and rear of the train, managing to slow it down. However, it is too late to prevent an accident as it drives through a cliff and into an underground train station, derailing in the process. Billy and Rebecca escape the derelict train and find themselves in a large facility, which used to be Umbrella's training school. It is revealed that Dr. Birkin and Dr. Wesker, two of Umbrella's high-ranking virologists, are watching them through CCTV cameras. As they explore the school, they uncover disturbing evidence of what happened here both in the 70s and recently. Although it was built to oversee the training of gifted teenagers recruited by Umbrella, evidence points towards Marcus, the director of the school, deliberately using the children as test subjects in inhumane bioweapons research. This turns them into zombies, and they now roam the halls of the school. The mysterious man spots Rebecca on the CCTV and sends out some of the BOWs to eliminate her. One tracks her down and bites her. However, she is soon rescued by Billy. While traversing through the school, Rebecca finally gives in and demands Billy tell her the truth about what happened to him, and if he really killed all those people. He explains that his Marine unit suffered casualties due to faulty intelligence when searching for a guerrilla base in an African jungle. His commanding officer then ordered them to fire on innocent villagers, but he refused to take part. Due to this, he was scapegoated by the unit, with a court-martial finding him guilty to cover up the scandal. Birkin and Wesker begin their own plan to deal with this mysterious man, whom they believe is Marcus, the school's director, brought back to life. They consider him a significant threat and decide to activate the facility's self-destruct device to blow up the training school and the man with it. Billy and Rebecca then proceed to a dilapidated church, where they take an elevator down into the laboratory used by Marcus for his T-virus research. There, they find even more evidence of Marcus's cruel experiments on children. After some investigating, Billy discovers a photograph of Marcus from his younger years, looking exactly like the mysterious man, which leads him to speculate that it could be his son or grandson. Ready to leave the laboratory on an underground cable car, Billy and Rebecca are attacked by one of Marcus's BOWs. And during the fight, Billy falls down a ledge and into an underground stream. Heading out on her own, Rebecca makes her way to the Umbrella chemical plant, located downhill from the training school. Heading down a large train elevator, Rebecca reaches Nest, the site of Birkin's own bioweapons research. There, she runs into none other than Enrico, her team's captain, who has infiltrated Nest through the subway tunnels. He is confused as to why the rest of the team isn't there with her, and decides they should go back and look for them in the nearby mansion. However, Rebecca refuses to go, stating that she needs to find Billy first. Soon after, Rebecca is confronted by the T-001, Umbrella Tyrant prototype, which has been released by the mysterious man, but she quickly knocks it out. Heading into an adjoining water plant, Rebecca finds Billy being dragged by the currents of the underground stream and helps him up. As they continue to explore the plant, they finally come face to face with the mysterious man himself. He reveals to them his true origins. He is the Queen Leech, a mutant test subject created by Marcus in 1988. After his death, Marcus's body was dumped in the water, and the leech entered his body, consuming his brain and gaining his memories. The Queen Leech now sees itself as Marcus resurrected through divine work and seeks to use its powers to bring hell to the world. The Queen Leech transforms into a giant leech, abandoning its humanoid appearance, and confronts Billy and Rebecca. They manage to momentarily escape the creature, but end up facing off against the monster again in a large warehouse used for helicopter cargo transport. Realizing that the creature is sensitive to light, Rebecca manipulates the controls to the warehouse's retractable roof. Billy then fires at the creature with a magnum, causing it to fall down the elevator shaft just as the treatment plant explodes, along with the training school. Rebecca and Billy manage to escape the explosion and get out of the facility. Looking out from the cliff edge, Rebecca spots the mansion Enrico told her about before and realizes that's where she needs to go next. Knowing Billy will have to be detained and sent for execution for multiple murders he didn't commit, Rebecca takes his dog tag and declares him dead. He agrees to faking his death and walks out into the forest alone, while Rebecca proceeds to the mansion. Resident Evil 1. Resident Evil 1 begins on the night of Friday the 24th of July, 1998, just one day after the events of Resident Evil 0. After all radio contact was lost with Bravo's team due to the events we just discussed, Alpha Team was sent to investigate their disappearance on top of completing the original mission. Alpha Team discovered Bravo Team's wrecked helicopter with its pilot dead and everyone else missing. A while later, Alpha Team's Joseph Frost gets attacked by a pack of mutated dogs who tore his body apart, with his comrades unable to do anything to help. Panicked, Brad Vickers takes off, abandoning Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, and their leader, Captain Albert Wesker. Yeah, it's the same Albert Wesker from Resident Evil 0 who works as Umbrella's virologist. As it turns out, he also works as Umbrella's spy and has over years infiltrated United States Army and became captain of Alpha Team. Anyway, the remaining 4 STARS members ran into a large mansion that was nearby to seek refuge. Upon arriving, they all split up to search the place. While searching the place, they found a couple of Team Bravo members, with one of them being eaten by a mutant cannibal, another one who turned into zombie, and another member who got poisoned by a venomous mutant snake. Chris later met up with Rebecca Chambers, who as a medic could treat some of the survivors' injuries. Meanwhile, Jill looks around the mansion with Barry, but starts to suspect that something is wrong with him due to his movements. As time passes, the officers become aware that the mansion is used by the Umbrella Pharmaceuticals for researching viruses, and that the mutants are the results of an extremely dangerous virus that turns people into undead, murderous zombies. In further research of the mansion, they learn of the Trevor family, George, Jessica, and Lisa, who were kidnapped by one of Umbrella's founders, Oswald E. Spencer, to be used as test subjects for the virus. Out of the 3, only Lisa survived, though after being tested on for years, she has become mad and heavily mutated. She now freely roams around the mansion, killing whoever she crosses paths with. In the courtyard's underground area, Bravo Team's captain Enrico Marini is found injured. He is sure that there's a traitor among STARS working for Umbrella, but gets assassinated by someone who quickly escapes. Moving into the secret laboratory under the mansion, everything starts to make much more sense. The virus is finally discovered to be part of an illegal bioweapons research done by the United States military. The latest virus, Epsilon, leaked out during an accident, leading to the staff being infected and unable to maintain the facility, which allowed the zombies to escape. It is also revealed to others that Captain Wesker is not only a former member of Umbrella's lab team, but also a spy. We also learn that he was ordered by Umbrella to lure STARS members into the mansion to test how good the zombies would do in killing armed professionals. Wesker was then ordered to destroy the whole laboratory and erase all evidence of Umbrella's involvement, while recovering embryonic clone samples of the bioorganic weapons. Barry also helped him with destroying evidence under threat of his family's murder. After getting cornered, Wesker confesses to his actions and adds that he also plans on betraying Umbrella by selling the clone samples to a rival company. However, at that point, Umbrella's latest creation, the T-002 Tyrant, awakens from its slumbers with its mission to kill the remaining STARS members. He first turns on Wesker, impaling him with his claws, before going after the others. The lab's self-destruct system activates as the 4 remaining STARS members, Barry, Rebecca, Chris, and Jill, rush to the helipad where Brad was supposed to pick them up. The T-002 confronts them on the helipad as Brad arrives, but STARS destroy him with a direct hit from a rocket launcher Brad dropped them. They all fly away from the mountains as the Spencer Mansions explodes. Resident Evil 2. The game takes place in September 1998. Sometime prior to the game's beginning, the T-virus outbreak occurred within Raccoon City, a small industrialized city located in Arklay County. Resident Evil 2 lets you play as either Leon or Claire. Most of the story plays out the same except for a few times where it branches off depending on which character is chosen. Unaware of the outbreak and quarantine, rookie police officer Leon S. Kennedy is driving towards Raccoon City Police Station, late for his first day at work. He stops off at a gas station to fuel up, but hears a weird sound coming from inside. He goes in to investigate and finds a police officer being attacked by a zombie. Leon immediately escapes the station and meets Claire outside. Nearby zombies quickly start to surround them, and the two escape in the officer's police car. Driving through these city streets, Leon and Claire discover that everyone has been turned into zombies and hear from a pre-recorded announcement that everyone is advised to seek shelter in Raccoon City Police Station. It's also here that we learn that Chris Redfield, the protagonist of the previous game, is actually Claire's brother, and she came to the city to look for him. Leon and Claire eventually reach a dead end, deciding that they have to continue on foot, but the car instantly gets surrounded by zombies. At that moment, they see a truck driving towards them. Although it doesn't hit them, it crashes nearby, setting everything around on fire. Due to this, Leon and Claire are separated and have to take different paths to the station. Leon reaches the police station and soon meets injured Marvin Bernal, the only remaining officer. He explains the situation and tells Leon that the remaining police officers were trying to escape the building through a hidden passage. After searching around, Leon opens up the secret passage and asks Marvin to come along, but he refuses, knowing that he will soon become a zombie too. At this time, a T-00 Tyrant is sent to Raccoon City to eliminate everyone at the police station and hunt for the G-Virus. In the underground tunnel, Leon encounters mutated Dr. William Birkin and fights him. Yeah, it's that guy from Resident Evil 0. Upon defeating him, he proceeds to the parking garage where he is saved by Ada Wong. Ada introduces herself as an FBI agent, but doesn't want to share any information she has with Leon. Leon soon meets a prisoner named Ben Bertolucci, who is a lot more talkative. He reveals that Chief Irons, the chief of police, was corrupt and working for Umbrella, but Leon doesn't believe him. Suddenly, T-00 breaks through the wall of the cell and kills Ben, who had the keycard to open the garage. After restoring his power, Leon opens his cell and recovers the keycard just as T-00 appears again to chase Leon. The Tyrant catches him in the parking garage, but Ada rams into it with a police van, saving Leon. Leon gives Ada the tape recorder that Ben had on him, which makes her reveal that she is investigating Annette Birkin, wife of previously mentioned William Birkin, who she blames for the virus outbreak. As they reach the sewers, Leon is chased by a giant mutant alligator, but managed to cause an explosion and blow its head off. He then catches up with Ada again, but is shot by Annette. Ada chases after her and is nearly killed by an incinerator and injures her leg by falling on a pile of debris. Meanwhile, in Claire's story, after her fight with William, instead of meeting Ada, she meets Sherry Birkin, Annette's daughter. However, they are quickly separated as she gets taken away by the police chief, Brian Irons, who takes her to the Raccoon City orphanage. Soon after, he contacts Claire, telling her to come to the orphanage and bring Sherry's locket that was left in her possession. The reason this locket is so important is because it has a sample of G-Virus inside it. Claire arrives at the orphanage and finds out that Chief Irons has already been killed by mutated William, who apparently survived his battle with Claire. After meeting up with Sherry again, the two get chased by T-00 into the elevator, and right as they are about to be killed, William penetrates the tyrant with his claws and jumps on the lift, sending them all down into the sewers. It's here that Claire is introduced to Sherry's mother, Dr. Annette Birkin, who takes Sherry to safety. Soon after, Sherry suffers from the side effects of the G-Virus that her father implanted in her before. After another boss fight against William, now in his even more mutated G2 form, Leon and Claire head down into the Nest, which is Umbrella's underground laboratory. Claire goes there to cure Sherry, while Leon goes there to continue his investigation with Ada. After exploring the lab, Claire recovers Devil vaccine in order to threat Sherry, while Leon finds the sample of the G-Virus. It's here that they are attacked by William again, now in his G3 form. Yeah, this guy just doesn't die. Anyway, Annette helps him deal with William and gets seriously wounded in the process. After the boss fight, Claire and Annette go into the security room to vaccinate Sherry. The vaccine works and Sherry is cured. However, Annette dies from her wounds. In Leon's story, however, he hears from Annette that Ada isn't a real FBI agent and that her plan was to acquire and sell the G-Virus all along. When Leon confronts Ada about this, she pulls a gun on him, but gets shot by Annette, falling to the bottom of the facility. Since Leon has stole the G-Virus sample earlier, Nest's auto-destruct system initiates. In order to escape the explosion, Leon, Claire, and Sherry rush to the express lift to the underground train yard. Claire and Sherry take a route that leads them to another encounter with William, now in his G4 form. I'm not even going to attempt to explain how he's still alive. Meanwhile, Leon takes the cargo lift down, where he is confronted by T-00, who is mutated into a super tyrant. Leon gets a little help from Ada, who somehow survived the fall, and manages to finally defeat the tyrant with a rocket launcher. After both characters finish their battles, they all board the escape train together. But since this is a Resident Evil game, it's not over yet, as William absorbs surrounding bodies to transform one last time into, you'll never guess, G5 form. In this form, he becomes a shapeless blob of flesh, eyes, and tentacles. He attempts to board a train Claire and Leon are on, and the two are forced to throw everything they have at William in order to buy time for his carriage to get detached, leaving him to get consumed by the flames erupting from Nest. With William finally dead, for real this time, the crew hops off the train and walks down a highway, thinking of what they should do next. Leon and Claire swear that they will put an end to Umbrella for what they did to the city. Now, this next section is not part of any game in particular, and it's mostly info we got throughout many different games. So after Leon and Claire have successfully escaped the Nest, they decide to go their separate ways. Claire decides to continue her search for her brother Chris, while Leon agrees to look after Sherry. Immediately after this, Leon went to the nearby military station for protection, where he was interrogated for knowing too much about the incident in the city. Since Leon is proven to be very capable in battling zombies and other bioweapons, he was given an option to join the Anti-Umbrella Pursuit and Investigation team as a special agent in exchange for his and Sherry's safety. Resident Evil 3 Remake. The story of Resident Evil 3 takes place around the same time as the story of Resident Evil 2. However, this time, we follow Jill Valentine, a former Alpha team member from the first game. After the events in the mansion, Jill has been doing her own investigation on Umbrella in order to uncover their secrets. On September 28th, at around 8 p.m., Jill receives a frantic phone call from Brad Vickers. He warns her that she has to immediately leave her apartment. However, before he can explain why, Nemesis, a tyrant created by Umbrella, bursts through the wall in an attempt to kill Jill. She narrowly manages to escape its clutches and reach the fire escape. Going down, she briefly absorbs the carnage that Raccoon City has fallen into. Jill is once again ambushed by the Nemesis and is clearly caught, but barely manages to escape again. Outside, Jill encounters Brad, who explains that while he doesn't know what the creature is, he knows that it's after the STARS members who are in Raccoon City. Zombies break down nearby barricades, and the pair has to retreat inside a bar. However, zombies manage to break in through the door, and one of them bites Brad, who realizes that there's no time and tells Jill she must escape. While Brad sacrifices his life to hold off the zombies, Jill starts making her way toward the parking garage, where a chopper will be waiting for her. Shortly after, she arrives in the garage, but the chopper suddenly blows up, and Nemesis emerges from the dust. Jill uses a car to ram into the creature, and they both fall off the building. Jill manages to crawl out of the wreckage before the car explodes and burns away the Nemesis face mask, allowing her to finally see her pursuer for what it truly is. Before Nemesis can kill her, she's saved by Carlos Oliveira, who uses a rocket launcher to briefly incapacitate the creature. They escape into the subway, and Carlos then tells her that he is part of an Umbrella countermeasure service. After hearing this, Jill lashes out at him, saying that Umbrella was responsible for the chaos occurring in Raccoon City, but having left with no choice, she decides to go with him. He then introduces her to Captain and Platoon Leader Mikhail Victor, who asks her for help in evacuating some survivors via the subway train, which Jill agrees to. She reaches the top side of Raccoon City streets and is instructed by Carlos to head for the substation. Once inside the building, she finds an injured Murphy Seeker, but before she can treat him, a man called Nikolai appears from behind and shoots Murphy in the head. Shocked and outraged, Jill angrily tells him that he might not have been infected, but Nikolai retaliates by taunting her, saying that all of the STARS members are soft, and suggests she goes back to the subway station. After resetting the circuit breakers and getting traffic controls online again, Jill meets up with Carlos back at the station. Nikolai and Tyrell Patrick appear, and Nikolai informs them that there is no chance of fighting their way out of the city, as it is filled with infected creatures. Nikolai notices that Jill is also there and taunts her again, telling Carlos that she's unreliable and will get them killed. Suddenly, Nemesis storms into the station, and Jill decides to use herself as bait to draw him away and hopefully buy others some time. Jill manages to escape the Nemesis once again and attempts to contact Carlos, but she gets no signal and chooses to head for the surface. She navigates through the sewers to get into the city above, while fighting many Hunter-Gammas in the process. She eventually reaches the top and attempts to contact Carlos again, who is relieved to hear that she is alive and tells her that they will leave once she gets back. Jill starts heading back, only to realize that she was tracked again by the relentless Nemesis. The creature proceeds to chase her with its brand new flamethrower, forcing her to evade its attacks by ascending the building she is in. Escaping to the rooftop, Jill is forced to duel with the Nemesis, destroying its fuel tank and ultimately incapacitating it. Believing she killed it, Jill informs Carlos that it is finally dead. However, not long after, she is surprised to see Nemesis again, now wielding a rocket launcher. Jill runs towards the station while Nemesis pursues her, and when she arrives, Carlos shoots a gasoline truck that explodes, blocking its way. Mikhail praises Jill for her actions and tells her to get on the train. Mikhail also orders Carlos and Tyrell to head back to the city and find Dr. Nathaniel Bard, whose vaccine research could save the city. Nikolai, waiting inside the train, praises Jill, saying that she is learning that all that matters is her own life. The train soon departs. A few hours later, around 2 a.m., Nemesis storms onto the train, killing all of the civilians. Outraged by this, Jill attempts to attack it, but Mikhail stops her and instructs her to go to the back of the train. However, wanting to protect himself, Nikolai locks the door, trapping Jill and Mikhail with the Nemesis. The creature then pierces Mikhail with a tentacle, but he uses a C4 detonator in a final sacrifice to try and destroy the tyrant, separating them from the subway car Jill is in. Due to this, Jill's car begins derailing, and she flies into the wall of the train, with the impact from the hit knocking her unconscious. Around that same time, Carlos and Tyrell arrive at the RPD in search for Dr. Bard, who is, according to the intel Mikhail received, inside the STARS office. On his way, Carlos encounters lickers and zombies that have overrun the station, but manages to reach the office and contacts Dr. Bard, who reveals that he escaped and is now trapped at the hospital that is filled with zombies. Bard reveals that Umbrella is killing all the researchers, for they are the witnesses that might incriminate Umbrella by revealing their illegal activities and its connection to the outbreak. In the meantime, Carlos is contacted by Jill, who informs him about what happened on the train. Carlos rushes to Jill's location while Tyrell remains to track Dr. Bard. The scene once again switches to Jill, who managed to crawl out of the subway car and reach the city park. However, she quickly realizes that she is still not in the clear as she hears the Nemesis's roar. The creature soon emerges from the river, having mutated into a more monstrous form with claws. Jill runs from it until she is cornered in the plaza, where she is forced to fight it. After a long duel, Jill knocks the creature out with the explosive rounds. But before she can leave the area, Nemesis attacks her again, grabbing her by the feet until she shoots the chain that is holding the metal portcullis. The portcullis falls and cuts off Nemesis's arm, but it regrows the arm in the form of a tentacle and manages to infect Jill with the virus. Before she fully loses consciousness, Nikolai appears smiling and thanks her for doing him a big favor. 12 hours later, Carlos finds Jill and carries her to the Spencer Memorial Hospital, hoping Dr. Bard could cure her. Carlos enters Dr. Bard's office and finds him dead with a gunshot wound to the head, having been assassinated by Nikolai. In the office, Carlos finds a computer that contains a video recording dated back to September 29th. In the video, Bard reveals that his employer, Umbrella, engineered the virus and ordered their team to develop a vaccine. He explained that he had one sample of the vaccine in his office, while the rest of it was stored in an underground facility. Obtaining the vaccine, Carlos rushes back to the room where he left Jill and uses the vaccine on her. Tyrell arrives at the hospital sometime later and turns on the TV to reveal an announcement that the US government will soon launch a missile strike on the city in an attempt to eradicate the virus. They urge the survivors who are still alive to get out of the city before the deadline. Soon, a horde of zombies surround the hospital, with Carlos fending off the creatures in order to protect Jill. Hours later, Jill finally wakes up and realizes that Missile Strike is only a few hours away. She finds Tyrell outside still trying to get a hold of someone with any clearance to stop the Missile Strike, and informs her that Carlos is underground trying to find the vaccines in order to give the city some hope. Jill goes after Carlos and finds a secret complex that leads to an underground facility. She soon regroups with Tyrell, who informs her that he managed to get through to the government. The government had agreed to call off the strike, but only if they deliver the vaccine to them. The duo then gets ambushed by the mutated Nemesis once again, and the creature manages to stab Tyrell with its tentacles, killing him. Jill manages to escape and is successful in doing vaccine synthesis. However, once again, she is ambushed by the Nemesis. Man, this guy really lives up to his nickname, the Pursuer. Anyway, while escaping, Jill barely manages to grab onto some ledges and drops the vaccine. Nikolai then appears and tells her that he wants her to go down there, fights the Nemesis while he records the battle in order to obtain the battle data, which he can sell for profit. He then sends her down, where she battles the Nemesis once again. Carlos also appears and assists her during the fight, with the two eventually covering Nemesis with some chemicals, turning him into a pulp. After the battle, Jill manages to catch up with Nikolai, pointing her gun at him, demanding to get the vaccine, but he refuses to give it to her. During this heated moment, Nemesis bursts into the room as a giant blob, which allows Nikolai to escape once again. Carlos appears and Jill tells him to go after Nikolai, while she will deal with the Nemesis one final time. Jill opens the compartment containing a ferromagnetic next-generation railgun and fires the powerful weapon at the Nemesis. After it is injured, she shoves the railgun to Nemesis's mouth and fires one last shot that completely obliterates the creature. Jill resumes her pursuit of Nikolai, and on the roof, she finds Carlos knocked unconscious. Nikolai then attacks and knocks Jill's gun out of her hand, while tossing her the vaccine canister only to shoot it, thus dooming the city. Outraged by this, Jill asks him if he has any idea what he had just done, but he only responds that he doesn't care. Nikolai prepares to kill Jill until Carlos tackles him and the two engage in combat. Carlos puts Nikolai in a chokehold and shouts for Jill to shoot him. She's reluctant at first, fearing that she'll hit Carlos, but finally complies and shoots Nikolai in the shoulder. Jill asks an injured Nikolai who he was working for, but instead of an answer, he offers to pay her if she gets him out of the city. Jill is not interested in that and boards the helicopter along with Carlos, leaving Nikolai to perish along with the city. Resident Evil Survivor. The events of Resident Evil Survivor take place in November 1998, around a month after the destruction of Raccoon City. The plot follows an agent called Ark Thompson, who was requested by Leon Kennedy to infiltrate an Umbrella facility on Sheena Island. He managed to do this by impersonating the leader of the facility, Vincent Goldman. However, Goldman soon learns about Ark and causes an intentional virus outbreak, which leads to Ark losing his memories. Thus, the game begins with Ark not remembering who he is. Ark's journey through the island slowly leads him to believe he really is Vincent Goldman and is responsible for the horrible experiments conducted on the children brought to the island. Ark soon encounters a small boy named Lot and his sister, Lily Klein. They at first run and attempt to attack Ark, but they slowly learn to trust him after he attempts to save Lot and his sister. Making his way through the city and into the Tyrant plant, Ark encounters multiple creatures on the island he must combat. In the Tyrant plant, Goldman attempts to kill Ark, but is instead killed by the experimental Tyrant Hypnos T-Type. After a brief battle with the Tyrants, Ark appears to have killed the creature and continues on. Eventually, while escaping the island, Ark remembers who he is and why he is on the island. Ark and the children proceed to the helipad, but mutated Hypnos Tyrant ambushes Ark and attacks him again. During the battle, the creature transforms once again, but Ark finally appears to kill it and proceeds to the helicopter for escape. As the three fly off, the creature tries to bring down their helicopter and jumps onto it, but Ark fires 2 missiles at it, finally killing it for good. Resident Evil Code Veronica X. It has been 3 months since the total destruction of Raccoon City, and Claire Redfield is still searching for her missing brother, Chris. Claire's search takes her to an Umbrella-owned facility in Paris, where she is met with fierce resistance. Claire attempts to pull off an impressive escape, but is eventually caught by Rodrigo Juan Raval, an Umbrella military commander, and imprisoned in the remote Rockford Island facility. Sometime after her imprisonment, Claire wakes up and finds herself released by the same man who captured her, while also discovering that an outbreak of the T-virus has occurred on the island. In the resulting chaos, she finds herself teaming up with Steve Burnside, another inmate seeking to escape. Along the way, they encounter multiple infected creatures, along with Alfred Ashford, insane island commander, and his equally evil twin sister, Alexa. In the classic Resident Evil fashion, Claire battles against the Tyrants, this time T-078, and after defeating it, successfully escapes the island alongside Steve. However, they are still not in the clear, as their plane is forcibly directed to Antarctica, where they crash into another Umbrella base. As Claire and Steve attempt to leave for an Australian research outpost in a snowmobile, they get attacked by tentacles deployed by a revived Alexa. Meanwhile, Chris Redfield has been in hiding with the surviving STARS members following their horror story at the Spencer Mansion during Resident Evil 1. Suddenly, Chris is contacted by Leon Kennedy, who informs him that his sister has been captured and taken to Umbrella's Rockford Island. Chris races against time to reach the island and rescue Claire from danger. However, what Chris discovers on the island is something he never expected. A man from his past who should, by all rights, be dead. His former captain, Albert Wesker. Wesker has his own agenda on the island that he is pursuing, and he is now working for someone else, pursuing an unknown interest. As Chris soon finds out, this is not the Wesker he remembers, as he possesses superhuman speed and strength. Chris learns from Wesker that Claire was already in Antarctica and attempts to make his way there. Eventually, the two are reunited, but it is short-lived as they get separated once again in order to rescue Steve, who has been captured. Claire manages to reach Steve, only for him to die a heroic death after saving her from a tentacle. Chris, on the other hand, gets into a fight with mutated Alexa, who he successfully defeats using some kind of prototype weapon. Soon after, Claire and Chris escape while the base self-destructs. Resident Evil Dead Aim. In 2002, 4 years after the destruction of Raccoon City, an Umbrella-owned ocean liner, Spencer Rain, has been contaminated by the T-virus by Umbrella's former employee, Morpheus D. Duval. Morpheus holds the world hostage, demanding that US and China pay him $1 billion, and if they decline, his followers will launch T-virus missiles. Bruce McGivern, a member of Anti-Umbrella Pursuit Investigation Team, a US government task force with the sole purpose of taking down Umbrella, is sent to fix the situation. Alongside him is Fong Ling, sent by the Chinese task force. Although they share the same goals and common enemy, their respective governments are against working together. During Bruce's infiltration, he is found by Morpheus and held at gunpoint on the foredeck. However, a surprise attack by Fong Ling allows Bruce to escape the ship, with Morpheus being injured in the explosion. He later infects himself with the experimental T+G virus in order to avoid an otherwise fatal wound. After a brief encounter with the mutated Morpheus in the cargo hold, the two gain access to the bridge and find that the ocean liner is on a collision course with a nearby island. Running outside to escape the ship, Bruce is forced to fight Tyrant 091, which had escaped its containment. Once it is defeated, Bruce jumps into the ocean and swims to the shore as the liner crashes into the cliffs on the edge of the island. After briefly exploring the island, which turns out to contain an abandoned Umbrella facility, Bruce makes his way through a series of underwater channels and discovers that the island was used as a waste disposal facility for failed bioorganic weapons. Deeper in the facility, Fong Ling has escaped from Pluto, a failed experiment which Umbrella lost track of, later rejoining with Bruce. It is at this point that they discover that the Chinese have given in to Morpheus's demands and have agreed to pay up, arranging for an orbital weapons satellite to kill Fong Ling with a targeted laser device. Bruce correctly deduces that the satellite is tracking a chip in her tattoo and proceeds to dig it out with a knife. With the chip destroyed, the satellite ceases its attack. The two make their way to the underwater biosphere where the missile launch facility is, but Bruce is forced to fight Pluto before he can reach it. With Pluto defeated, the two make their way down the elevator. However, Morpheus makes a sudden reappearance, sending the elevator crashing to the seafloor. The two operatives survive the crash, but Fong Ling is soon captured by Morpheus, who uses her as bait for Bruce. Bruce manages to save her, allowing Fong Ling to provide support as he searches for the missiles. Unfortunately, a greatly mutated Morpheus prevents him from reaching the missiles in time, though further damage causes the G-mutant to expand to such a size that the missiles explode underwater as soon as they come into contact with it. Bruce and Fong Ling are revealed to have escaped the underwater facility's destruction by use of an escape boat. With her own government believing her dead, Fong Ling has nowhere to go but the United States. She and Bruce kiss on the boat as Stratcom sends in a helicopter to pick them up. Resident Evil: The Darkside Chronicles. In 2002, somewhere in South America, Leon Kennedy and his partner Jack Krauser are searching for Javier Hidalgo, an ex-drug lord who had been reported to be approaching Umbrella. However, when Leon and Krauser reach the nearby village, they discover that the people there have been turned into zombies. They soon find their guide, who tells them that the girl called Manuela brought devils to this village before one of the creatures kills him. Fighting their way past more BOWs, Leon and Krauser eventually find the girl, but have to face the creature that took their village guide. They successfully defeat it after Leon shoots the bell tower, which falls on the creature. Due to rising water levels, the survivors make their way to the water dam, where Javier and his BOWs await. There, it is revealed by Javier that Manuela is his daughter, and that she's been receiving regular doses of the T. Veronica virus in order to contain her illness. They also learn that Javier has been abducting young girls in order to extract their organs and perform transplants in order to cure Manuela. Almost immediately, the two are confronted by the gigantic monster that ambushed them back at the church, who they soon learn is actually Manuela's mother, Hilda. Having the same illness as Manuela, she mutated due to the failure to keep the virus in check. After defeating the creature, Javier merges himself with Veronica Plant and attacks Leon and the injured Krauser. They manage to sever one of his arms, while Manuela assists them in the battle against her father by using her powers, at the risk of turning into a monster herself. In the end, the three survive and are rescued by helicopter, with the US government taking care of Manuela. Resident Evil 4. The story of Resident Evil 4 takes place 6 years after the Raccoon City incident, in the year 2004. In the autumn of the same year, the president's daughter, Ashley Graham, was kidnapped, and it was believed that it was done by someone close to the government. Soon, the US Secret Service receives credible intelligence suggesting that Ashley was sighted in Valdelobos, a remote mountainous village in Spain. Immediately acting on the intel, the president sends Leon Kennedy, one of his most trusted agents, to Valdelobos in order to search for Ashley. While approaching the village, Leon is accompanied by 2 local police officers that were ordered to assist him in the search. During the car ride, one of the officers informs Leon about the frequent disappearances in the region, including a group of hikers who went missing the previous week. Upon reaching the village, Officer Castaño excuses himself into the forest. Noticing that the officer hasn't returned for a long period of time, Leon ventures outside to search for the officer, while the other officer remains in the car. Following Castaño's muddy and bloody trail, Leon comes across an old run-down hunter's lodge. Inside the lodge, he explores the surroundings and encounters a resident who exhibits peculiar behavior. Leon asks the man in Spanish if he has seen the missing officer, but receives no response. While examining the room, he notices Officer Castaño's blood-stained badge and is suddenly attacked by the man. Leon narrowly manages to dodge the attack and inadvertently breaks the man's neck. Hearing Officer Castaño's screams, Leon follows the sounds to the basement, where he discovers the officer's mutilated corpse. Suddenly, Leon hears a noise coming from upstairs and encounters the man again, who, despite his broken neck, approaches Leon with tentacles sprouting from his wounds. Leon eventually manages to kill the man with his firearm. Returning to the main part of the lodge, Leon sees a bunch of villagers gathering around the lodge. He takes cover in another room, where he finds evidence indicating that Ashley is being held in Lake Lago, the lake area of the village. Leon contacts his support operative, Ingrid Hunnigan, to inform her of his discovery. With a lead in hand, Leon evades his pursuers by jumping out of a window and proceeds deeper into the village square. There, he witnesses the ritualistic burning and execution of the other police officer by the villagers. Soon, Leon finds himself surrounded by the villagers of Valdalobos, including a big man wearing a sack as a mask and wielding a chainsaw. Leon seeks refuge in a nearby house, which the villagers and the chainsaw-wielding maniac quickly break into. However, Leon buys himself enough time until the church bell rings, causing the villagers to suddenly drop their weapons and retreat back to the town hall. Outside, Leon stands puzzled by the villagers' actions, confused about what just happened. Now alone in the village square, Hunnigan contacts Leon and informs him of a path to the lake near the large windmill. Following the trail, Leon is attacked by numerous farmers and a brute ganado wearing a bull's head. Upon reaching his destination, Leon hears banging noises and discovers nailed wooden planks against a cellar door. Removing the boards, he enters the cellar and finds a captured man writhing inside a body bag. Leon frees the man named Luis Serra, but they are immediately interrupted by Torres Mendez, the chief of the village. Mendez disarms Leon and throws him across the room, rendering him incapacitated. In his unconscious state, Mendez approaches and injects Leon with the Las Plagas, a parasite that turns the entire village into mindless monsters. When Leon regains consciousness, he finds himself restrained alongside Luis. Luis reveals that he knows about Leon's search for the missing girl and informs him that there has been talk of moving Ashley to another location, specifically the old chapel in a different part of the village. Before they can delve further into the conversation, a ganado enters the room and attacks them. Despite being tied with chains, Leon and Luis manage to overpower the ganado by strangling it with their chains. Luis retrieves the key and frees himself first, with Leon following suit. After their escape, Leon contacts Hunnigan to share his recent discovery about Ashley's new whereabouts and asks her to conduct a background check on Luis due to his suspicious demeanor. Continuing his journey, Leon navigates through the treacherous terrain and enters the manor of the village chief, Mendez. While searching the manor, Leon finds a key that is necessary for progressing to the chapel. However, his advancement is interrupted by Mendez. Despite Leon's attempt to shoot him, Mendez shows no visible signs of injury and retaliates by attempting to strangle Leon. In the midst of the struggle, Mendez notices that Leon's plaga parasite, which he injected into him earlier, is developing and declares that his blood has accepted the gift. Suddenly, a mysterious woman outside the window shoots Mendez in the head, which forces Mendez to release Leon and gives chase after the woman. After recovering from the attack, Hunnigan contacts Leon again and sends her report on Luis. This report infuriates Leon as he finds out that Luis worked for Umbrella's research division, where he was highly regarded among his peers. Luis eventually resigned from Umbrella, and despite efforts to locate him following the Raccoon City destruction, he managed to evade detection. As evening approaches, Leon reaches a locked church surrounded by a graveyard. He realizes that Ashley must be held inside, but the key to the church is hidden on the other side of Lake Lago. which is intentionally done by the villagers in order to slow down his progress. While observing the lake, Leon witnesses villagers dumping Officer Castaño's body in the water, where it is devoured by a mutated creature called Del Lago. He boards the boat, however, it malfunctions, leaving Leon stranded. A fierce battle between Leon and Del Lago ensues, with Leon eventually emerging victorious. Exhausted and injured, Leon coughs up blood before losing consciousness on the boat. During this time, Leon experiences visions of the cult leader Sadler, who proudly declares that he and Ashley will join his coven and receive his holy blessing. Leon soon wakes up and steers his boat back to the mainland. As night falls, Leon finally obtains the key to the church and makes his way back there. He eventually reaches the church and enters the premises, where he finds Ashley's belongings scattered around. Leon approaches the room where Ashley is confined, and she attempts to attack him with a candlestick. Leon disarms her and explains that he was sent by the president in order to rescue her. However, as they step outside the room, they see hordes of villagers approaching them. Inside the church, Ashley expresses her concerns about their situation, but Leon reassures her and asks her to trust him, just as her father did when he entrusted her safety to him. Leon contacts Hunnigan and informs her that he successfully rescued the targets, and she arranges for a helicopter to extract them, providing coordinates for their rendezvous. Leon and Ashley reach the location only to find themselves surrounded by the villagers again. In the distance, Luis signals for them to run towards the nearby cabin, and they hastily enter for safety. Still angry over his discovery of Luis's past, Leon confronts him and attempts to interrogate him. However, their conversation is interrupted as the villagers start closing in on the cabin. Ashley hides while Leon and Luis defend the cabin against the assault. After enduring the onslaught for some time, Ashley discovers an escape route, and the trio flees the premises. Taking a moment to catch their breath, Ashley begins to cough up blood, and Luis explains that it is a symptom of Las Plagas, the same parasite that has infected the villagers and enslaved them. However, he also informs them that there is a surgical procedure that can remove the parasite. He bears scars across his chest as evidence that he once had the parasite implanted, but successfully removed it. Leon questions his motives for helping them, and Luis simply replies that it makes him feel better. He soon departs, promising to contact them again later. Hunnigan contacts Leon to inform him that the helicopter won't be able to reach their location due to the deteriorating weather. She expresses a desire to provide more assistance, but Leon reassures her that they will be fine. Meanwhile, Luis unexpectedly encounters Ada Wong, who was believed to be dead following the Raccoon City incident. Ada inquires about his progress in acquiring something called the Amber and reminds him that without it, he won't receive protection. Luis assures her that he will retrieve the Amber and mentions that he also needs to find something else. On their journey, Leon and Ashley are attacked once again by the village chief, Mendez, and are being pursued throughout the area. They navigate through an old and decrepit slaughterhouse, where Leon is unexpectedly ambushed by the chief once again. Aware that a confrontation is inevitable, Leon urges Ashley to escape from the area while he hurls a fuel tank at the chief and detonates it. However, the explosion barely phases Mendez, who reveals his mutated form, and a fierce battle ensues. During the fight, Leon successfully separates Mendez's body in half, but his upper body mutates even further and launches a ferocious attack. Ultimately, Mendez perishes while Leon survives his final encounter with the village chief. After the battle, the two proceed towards the castle, and upon entering, Luis contacts Leon and offers a suppressant that can slow down the progression of the parasite, suggesting that the three of them meet in the castle's courtyard. Along the way, Leon faces resistance from the armed artillery at the entrance, but manages to use the cannon to blow open the door and seek shelter inside. In the castle, Leon and Ashley come face to face with the governor of a castle, Ramon Salazar, who demands that Ashley be handed over to spread the parasite worldwide according to Sadler's will. Obviously, Leon refuses, and they encounter another resistance from the zealots. Nevertheless, they find a way to escape. After some time, the two reach the courtyard where Ashley's symptoms worsen. She collapses in Leon's arms, and to his surprise, a puppet-controlled version of Ashley takes hold of his knife and attempts to attack him. He manages to stop the attack, but before he can understand what's happening, a gate separates them. Ashley regains control, horrified by what she has done and fearing that she may harm Leon again. She runs away. As Leon retraces his steps, trying to locate Ashley within the castle, he unexpectedly encounters Ada. Ada notices his lack of surprise at her supposed death 6 years ago and holds him at gunpoint. However, Leon manages to disarm her and gain the upper hand. Curious about the organization she works for now, Leon questions her, but she playfully evades his inquiries. Ada suggests that Leon abandon Ashley, whom she believes is doomed. However, Leon firmly rejects the proposal. Running out of time, Ada proposes continuing their discussion at a later date and escapes through a window. After battling numerous types of plagas, including armored El Gigante on the top of the castle, Leon eventually finds Ashley in a secluded room, visibly upset. He attempts to approach her, but she recoils in fear, concerned about being controlled again. Leon tries to reassure her, and Ashley notices his symptoms, realizing that he has been infected as well. Leon assures her that they will both survive, even though Ashley is uncertain about the possibility. After an emotional moment between the two, Luis contacts Leon, requesting help in the ballroom beyond the courtyard. Upon finding all the necessary pieces to unlock the ballroom's door, the pair notice a group of zealots approaching, and Leon prepares to fight them. Unfortunately, one of the zealots traps Leon in a cage, leaving Ashley vulnerable to pursuit. Leon urges Ashley to flee, and she manages to escape and lock herself in a room. Making her way to the floor above, Ashley assures Leon that she will find a way to free him. Despite the challenges, she manages to find the required key, which she throws to Leon. Just as Leon is about to unlock the cage, he hears Ashley being abducted by Salazar's servant, Verdugo. Desperate to stop Verdugo, Leon fires bullets at it, but the creature remains unfazed. Helplessly, Leon watches as Ashley is carried away to an unknown location. Meanwhile, outside the castle, Ada contacts her employer to provide an update on her progress. She informs them that she hasn't been able to retrieve the amber yet, but mentions that Leon is assisting her in the retrieval process. After the call ends, Ada notices Verdugo carrying Ashley towards the throne room and quickly informs Leon about it. Upon reaching the throne room, Leon witnesses Ashley being held down by zealots, their bodies marked with blood. However, before he can take any action, Verdugo tramples him. Unable to do anything, Leon watches as Ashley is forcefully made to drink a black liquid, claimed by Salazar to intensify her suffering. Having satisfied his sadistic intentions by showing Leon the extent of Ashley's suffering, Salazar bids farewell and orders Verdugo to throw Leon into a hole below. Falling into the abyss, Leon manages to save himself by grabbing onto a chain previously used for executing zealots. He begins his journey to get back to the surface and eventually stumbles upon an underground laboratory. Inside, Leon becomes the target of a relentless pursuit by Verdugo, who hunts him relentlessly. Finally, an elevator descends to his floor and Leon gets in. In the elevator, Leon's plaga symptoms worsen further and he experiences disturbing visions. Upon arriving in the mines, Leon sees Luis standing by with the suppressants, ready to provide much-needed assistance. After injecting himself with the suppressants, Luis warns Leon that the effects of the suppressant will not last long, and he still needs to undergo an operation in order to take the parasite out. However, Leon is determined that rescuing Ashley is still the top priority, and is willing to risk his life to complete the mission. Moving forwards, the two discover a path that leads to the blast furnace. There, they battle two El Gigantes at the same time, but with some teamwork, they manage to do it. With no other viable path forward, Leon and Luis decide to ride the minecarts through the unstable mines, where they are pursued by various ganados. Upon reaching the surface, Luis is suddenly stabbed in the back by Jack Krauser, Leon's former friend, who was believed to be dead. This revelation shocks Leon as he realizes that Krauser has been the mole responsible for Ashley's kidnapping all along. Krauser, wielding a knife, engages Leon in a close-quarters combat duel. Amidst the fight, Leon attempts to reason with Krauser and understands his motives. Krauser says that he believes the government is to blame for all of his men dying during Operation Javier, and he seeks revenge for their deaths. Now, this is where we need to put a short pause in the story in order to explain something. If you listened closely so far, you probably noticed that during Operation Javier, only Leon and Krauser were sent in, and there was no mention of Krauser's men. Well, you see, there are actually multiple different accounts of this event throughout Resident Evil games, and it isn't really known which one is canon. In the Resident Evil 4 remake, it's said that Krauser actually had an entire team with him during the mission, and that all of his men died as a result of neglecting an evacuation request from the US. That's why in this game, Krauser blames the United States and the President for his men's deaths. Okay, back to the game. Leon engages Krauser and is ultimately defeated, but Luis manages to save him by shooting Krauser's knife away, which makes the soldier leave. Severely injured, Luis collapses to the ground and gives Leon the key to his lab, where they can remove the parasites. He tells Leon that people can change, and with regret, Leon watches as Luis succumbs to his wounds and passes away. Determined to avenge Luis's death, Leon boards the lift to the surface to confront Krauser. Inside the lift, Ada provides another tip about Ashley's location, saying that she has been moved to the clock tower. Upon reaching the clock tower, Salazar commands his zealots to stop Leon as he tries to ascend to the top. From the top, Leon witnesses Salazar delivering Ashley to Krauser inside the building and quickly follows their trail. However, before Leon can reach them, Krauser carries Ashley away, leaving Salazar to confront Leon alone. Salazar taunts Leon, but Leon has had enough of his games and shoots Salazar in the chest, causing him to fall below. Despite this, Leon continues to hear Salazar's laughter as he confronts Leon in his mutated form. After a tough battle, Salazar cries out for Sadler's help, but eventually succumbs to his injuries. Exiting from the castle, Leon sees Krauser piloting a boat with Ashley as his captive. Leon hurries to the dock, where Ada suddenly appears, holding the key to another boat. During the boat ride, Leon opens up to Ada about how he and the world have changed since the destruction of Raccoon City. He reflects on the difficult choices he's had to make, where saving one life often comes at the cost of many others. Leon questions whether Ada is also changed, or if she continues to use him for her own agenda, as she did 6 years ago. However, Ada remains silent and leaves Leon to pilot the boat to the docking point. Arriving on the rocky shores, Leon witnesses heavily fortified defenses and sees Krauser taking Ashley inside the base. After infiltrating the base and finding the right keycard, Leon opens Ashley's cell and finds her condition worsening rapidly. With the last suppressant in hand, Leon injects Ashley with the serum, providing her with some temporary relief. Feeling the effects of his own suppressant wearing off, Leon warily sits by Ashley's side, waiting for her to regain consciousness. After a period of waiting, Ashley wakes up and learns about Luis's death, and she vows to eliminate the parasites in their bodies as a tribute to him. Leon contacts Ada to obtain the exact location of Luis's laboratory, and although she is not certain, she informs them that important facilities are usually situated at the summit. With this knowledge, the pair embarks on their journey to reach the top. Upon reaching the Amber storeroom, Sadler and his followers reveal themselves, with Sadler introducing himself as the spokesperson for the cult. In response, Leon shoots Sadler in the eye, but the wound quickly heals. Using his ability to control anyone infected with Plagas, Sadler takes control of Leon and Ashley's body. He then commands Ashley to kill Leon. However, Ashley tries to resist, and instead of Leon, shoots 2 of Sadler's followers. Sadler then takes Ashley away, and once they are a sufficient distance away, he gains control of his body again. Leon soon arrives on the battlefield where Krauser is already waiting for him. He taunts Leon for his lack of judgment and mocks his inability to save anyone. They engage in a deadly fight as Leon strives to make his way towards the tower where Ashley's being held. Overpowered, Krauser begins to mutate his arm, now engaging Leon with his full power. It's a fierce duel, but Leon eventually emerges victorious, leaving Krauser incapacitated on the ground. Accepting his impending death, Krauser tells Leon to do what he must, and Leon uses Krauser's own knife to stab him in the heart, ending his life. In his final moments, Krauser proudly acknowledges that he has trained Leon well. With the drawbridge lowered, Leon enters the tower, though not without casting a regretful glance back at Krauser's lifeless body. On top of the building, Leon gazes at their heavily fortified sanctuary, where Ashley is being escorted inside by Sadler's followers. As Leon navigates his way towards them, he receives assistance from Mike, who arrives in a combat chopper sent by Hunnigan. Approaching a designated landing site, Leon prepares to board the chopper, but their plans are disrupted by swarms of Novistadors, insect-like monsters surrounding the vehicle. The Novistadors cause significant damage, resulting in the chopper catching fire and crashing uncontrollably, killing Mike in the process. Filled with rage towards Sadler, Leon becomes more determined than ever to end his reign. Upon reaching the sanctuary, Leon finds Ashley lying unconscious on a stone altar. He attempts to reach her but is confronted by Sadler once again, who reveals that their bodies and minds are linked through the holy body and tries to persuade Leon into accepting the gift. Infuriated, Leon lunges at Sadler, but the plaga rapidly spreads through his body, threatening to take control of him. At that moment, Ada arrives and shoots at Sadler, providing Leon and Ashley with an opportunity to escape as she fends off their pursuers. With time running out, the pair tries to reach Luis's laboratory, with Leon experiencing visions clouding his sight. Utilizing the key entrusted to him by Luis, Leon finally arrives at the laboratory, where the process of removing the plagas from Ashley begins. Relieved that Ashley is now safe from harm, exhausted, Leon collapses onto the floor. While unconscious, Ashley moves Leon for the parasite removal procedure, which is successfully executed. With the plagas now removed, they are free from Sadler's control and grateful for Luis's assistance. In the laboratory, the two find out what amber is. It's a sample of the plaga that contains the same properties found in Sadler, and once it's fully developed, it could rival or even surpass Sadler's strength. Exiting the cave, they notice Ada being held captive, intended as bait to lure Leon out. Sensing the danger, Leon leaves Ashley behind and rushes to free Ada from her restraints. Although he successfully frees her, he is soon surrounded by swarms of Novistadors, and Sadler himself appears, attempting to strangle Leon. Ada comes to his rescue, allowing them to confront the mutated Sadler one last time. As they battle, Sadler reveals his plan to spread the plaga throughout the world, uniting humanity through the holy body in order to create his idea of a paradise. Leon manages to defeat Sadler, causing him to fall into the sea below. However, Sadler mutates once again, transforming into a massive creature. Leon holds on long enough for Ada to toss him a rocket launcher, which he uses to weaken the creature. Taking advantage of the opening, Leon impales Sadler with his own staff, finally vanquishing the mutated monster. Leon tries to retrieve the amber, but Ada grabs it before him. She explains that she has already made a deal with someone to retrieve the amber and offers Leon a ride on the helicopter, but he declines, knowing that this is where they part ways. Leon and Ashley run towards the docks, while all of the Ganados die in violent seizures due to Sadler's demise. The two use a water scooter left behind by Ada to navigate the collapsing cave and burning facilities. They barely manage to escape and witness the island's destruction. Ashley jokingly offers to put Leon under her personal security detail, but he refuses, saying that she can handle herself. The two head home as Hunnigan finally establishes contact with Leon. Meanwhile, on the helicopter, Ada contacts her employer, who turns out to be none other than Albert Wesker. She asks what are his intentions with the amber, and he reveals his plan to accelerate change, sacrificing hundreds of lives for the benefit of one and potentially causing casualties in the billions. Shocked by the insanity of his ambitions, Ada holds the pilot at gunpoint and orders a change in their course. Resident Evil Revelations. Resident Evil Revelations is set in 2005 after the events of Resident Evil 4 in Valdalobos. Jill and her partner Parker are sent out by BSAA to search for Chris and his partner Jessica, who have reportedly gone missing during a mission. The two make their way into the Mediterranean Sea, acting on Chris's last known coordinates. They find themselves taking a tugboat to a seemingly abandoned cruise ship known as the Queen Zenobia. On board, they encounter horrific mutants known as Ooze, victims of the T-Abyss virus, and are unable to locate Chris or Jessica. Instead, they find a dummy of Chris and are knocked unconscious by an agent working for Il Verto, an international terrorist organization. Meanwhile, Chris and Jessica are revealed to be in a snowy mountain region, searching for evidence that Il Verto is active again. The two find their base of operations, an airstrip in the mountains. O'Brien, the head of BSAA, soon manages to contact Chris and informs him that Jill and Parker are missing in the Mediterranean, due to false intel that suggested Chris was there. Two more agents, Quint and Keith, are dispatched to investigate the airstrip, while Chris and Jessica make their way to the cruise ship to search for Jill. Around the same time, Jill wakes up in one of the cabins on the Queen Zenobia and is contacted by Parker, who tells her to regroup on the bridge. They're soon attacked by Raymond Vester, an FBC agent who knows Parker from the time they worked together. After a short fight, Raymond tells them that nothing will ever change unless they get their hands dirty, and leaves, leaving Parker and Jill confused as to what he was even doing there. While that is happening, Chris and Jessica land on a ship they think is the Queen Zenobia, but soon discover it is its sister ship, the Queen Semiramis. Jill and Parker try to reach the tower to contact O'Brien and report what is happening. However, they are met with the bad news. The Regia Solis, the satellite used to fry the city of Terra Grigia a year earlier, has been reactivated and is being aimed at the Queen Zenobia. Quint leads Jill and Parker via comm to the ship's bow, and the two race against time to find the controls and guide the targeting system away from the ship. Although they manage to do it, the shockwave from the blast is too strong and creates a big tsunami that threatens to sink the ship. Meanwhile, Quint and Keith, the two agents sent to investigate the airstrip we talked about earlier, discover that O'Brien, the head of BSAA, is actually the mastermind behind Veltro's reemergence. However, the sudden airstrike bombs the airstrip, with the two barely escaping. Chris and Jessica finally arrive on the Queen Zenobia and witness a Veltro agent talking to Jill and Parker. Before the agent can reveal the important information to the two, Jessica suddenly shoots him, claiming that she did it to protect them. The masked Veltro agent is revealed to be Raymond, an FBC agent they met earlier. Soon after, the team split up, with Jessica and Parker going separate ways. However, Jessica ends up betraying Parker, wounding him, and initiating the self-destruct sequence, confirming that she is a mole. Meanwhile, Jill and Chris confront Lansdale, the FBC director, who reveals that he worked with Veltro during the Terra Grigia panic to increase the FBC's funding and international influence. Finally, O'Brien contacts Chris and Jill and tells them the truth behind the mission. He orchestrated all of the events so far in order to gather evidence of Lansdale's involvement in Terra Grigia. However, Lansdale proceeds to arrest O'Brien, cutting off communications. After this, Jill and Chris search for Jack Norman, the leader of Veltro, knowing that he holds the evidence they need to bring Lansdale down. However, when they find him, they realize that he's gone insane and injected himself with the T-Abyss virus, but has somehow resisted mutation through his desire for vengeance. He then injects himself with an overdose of the virus, believing Chris and Jill to be FBC sent to kill him, and transforms into a new type of tyrant known as the Final Form Abyss. After a long battle, he is finally killed, expressing his relief that he could finally be at peace. Chris and Jill then broadcast the video via Norman's PDA, exposing Lansdale. O'Brien is immediately released and Lansdale is arrested instead. The truth behind Terra Grigia goes public, and the FBC is dissolved. O'Brien decides to take responsibility for his actions in orchestrating the entire mission and steps down as director of the BSAA. In a post-credits scene, Raymond approaches Jessica at a cafe and gives her a sample of the T-Abyss virus. She asks him why he saved Parker, and he replies that he had his reasons. Resident Evil 5. Before covering the main story of Resident Evil 5, we first need to cover the DLC called Lost in Nightmares, which takes place 3 years prior to the main story in 2006. The BCAA receives a tip-off on the whereabouts of Umbrella's founder, Oswald E. Spencer. Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine are assigned to raid his estate and arrest the elderly man, in the hopes he will have information on where to find Albert Wesker. After breaking into the estate, Chris and Jill see that the entirety of Spencer's security is dead and are forced to relive old memories as they make their way through traps and puzzles that are harrowingly similar to those of the Spencer mansion. Combating multiple blobs that roam the estate, they finally reach Spencer's office, but are instead confronted by the sight of Spencer's corpse and none other than Albert Wesker standing over his body. Chris and Jill waste no time in trying to apprehend Wesker, but their efforts are of little success due to Wesker's superhuman speed and strength, and they are easily overpowered. Wesker finally prepares to deliver a final blow that would end Chris's life. However, before this could happen, Jill, without hesitation, makes the ultimate sacrifice to save Chris's life by selflessly lunging at Wesker and sending them both flying through the window. Chris can do nothing but watch helplessly as his partner falls to her death. 3 years after this incident, in 2009, Chris Redfield is sent to investigate possible bioorganic weapon smuggling in Africa. He arrives at Kajuju Autonomous Zone, where he meets his partner, BSA agent Sheva Alomar. Together, they try to meet up with BSAA's Alpha team, who were attempting to intercept a weapon smuggler named Ricardo Irving. By the time Chris arrived to the city, most of the citizens have already been infected with Type 2 Plagas, although they don't attack Chris and Sheva since they have not been ordered to. However, the situation soon gets out of control as their contact in the city gets publicly executed, and Agitator notices them, commanding everyone to attack them. Barely escaping from the Magini, Chris and Sheva find Captain DeChant, the only remaining member of the Alpha team. He is mortally wounded, but warns them of Irving and hands them the data file before dying. Shortly after, the two get attacked by an invincible monster made out of small black worms. They destroy it by locking it in the incinerator and burning it to dust. Once they are outside again, Chris and Sheva get ambushed by a few Magini on motorcycles, but are saved by Captain Josh Stone and the rest of the Delta team. They give Chris a memory card containing information on where they should head next. Among other info on the card, Chris finds a picture of supposedly dead Jill. The two then continue their search for Irving and eventually corner him in a building beyond the mines. However, before they can capture him, Irving manages to escape with the help of a hooded person wearing a raven mask. But just before leaving, Irving sends a bat-looking monster to kill them. After they defeat the creature, Delta Team's Dave Johnson arrives to pick them up and get them to where the rest of the Delta Team are. They soon arrive, only to find all their comrades killed by a mutant giant, made after El Gigante from Resident Evil 4, who also stomps and kills Dave. Chris and Sheva manage to kill the monster with the machine guns that were attached to their car. Afterwards, they get orders to retreat, and Sheva suggests that they both back out of the mission. However, Chris wants to keep going, hoping that Jill is somehow still alive and that he can find her. Using the data they got from the mines, they head for an oil field where Irving should be. Chris and Sheva soon arrive at a small village inhabited by Indipapia, a tribe of people who were infected with Type 3 plagas after Irving told them that it was a vaccine. In the village, they find tents belonging to a pharmaceutical company, Darkside, who are most likely involved in the spread of the plagas. Chris and Sheva reach the oil field where they meet with injured Josh Stone, who survived the massacre of the Delta team. They find Irving just as he is leaving on his boat and chase him. When they catch up to him, in a last-ditch effort, Irving injects himself with the dominant species of plaga provided to him by the masked character. After some battling, Chris and Sheva eventually defeat him using the machine guns attached to his boat. Irving blames the Tricell's director, Excella Gion, for his defeat, confirming Tricell's involvement in the spread of the virus. He mocks Chris and tells him to search a nearby cave where he will find all the answers he seeks. The two then head for the cave and discover an underground civilization housing more Indipapia, who are guarding flowers known as Stairway to Sun, which are the source of the progenitor virus. Going further, they find a research facility that was used by Umbrella but taken over by Tricell. They also find the pods seen in the intel they had from before, and Chris goes to search for Jill's name on a computer only to find that her cell is empty. Suddenly, Excella Gion appears on the screen and tells them to leave, saying that if they keep going, they would just be throwing their lives away. She also reveals that she is the one who made the BSAA order for Chris and Sheva to retreat. Deep in the facility, they meet with Excella again, and she unleashes a bioweapon similar to the one that wiped out the Alpha team. Using fire, Chris and Sheva defeat the monster again, but by then, Excella has already escaped. They chase her down and get attacked by the hooded figure. To their surprise, Wesker also appears and reveals that the masked figure is none other than Jill Valentine, who is being controlled by him. Chris tries to talk with Jill, but she attacks him at superhuman speed. After a bit of fighting, Jill tries to resist and regain control of her body, but Wesker uses some kind of device to make her obedient, causing her a lot of pain in the process. Eventually, Wesker leaves Jill to fight because he has some important business to attend to. Chris and Sheva subdue and rip out the device that was controlling Jill from her chest, and she tells them to keep going and that they're the only ones who can save the world. Chris and Sheva board Wesker's ship and locate Excella holding 2 briefcases containing chemicals. She escapes but drops one briefcase. They pick up the chemicals and continue going after her. They continue pursuing her and find her infected with Ouroboros. Heartbroken because she thought she would rule the world alongside Wesker, but he discarded her. She explodes into a bunch of Ouroboros worms that start consuming the nearby dead bodies. The monstrosity becomes so large that it can sink the entire ship, forcing Chris and Sheva to use a laser strike to take it down. Afterward, they continue to chase after Wesker, who reveals that he plans on spreading Ouroboros around the whole world, which would destroy most of humanity and leave him to rule the survivors as a god. Jill calls them to inform them of Wesker's weakness. She knows that he takes regular doses of some kind of serum, but if he takes too much, he will become severely weakened. Sheva realizes that the chemicals they collected from Excella's briefcase are that exact serum. Shortly after, they finally reach the hangar where Wesker and his plane are. In that plane is enough Ouroboros to infect the entire planet. After weakening Wesker with an RPG, Chris injects him with the serum. Wesker escapes into his jet and takes off, with Chris and Sheva barely getting in on time. Wesker tells them that in 5 minutes, the bomber will be in the perfect spot to unleash the virus. The two fight him for a bit and manage to sting him with another dose of serum in the process. Chris opens the plane's door in order to launch Wesker off the plane, but he grabs onto Sheva. Chris manages to hold her from falling, not wanting a repeat of what happened to Jill. Sheva shoots Wesker in the face and he falls into an active volcano along with the plane. After the fall, it is revealed that Wesker is still alive. He curses them for destroying his perfect plans and mercilessly attacks them. However, the volcano crumbles and the ground under Wesker breaks, causing him to fall into the lava. In the meantime, to Chris and Sheva's rescue comes a helicopter piloted by Josh and Jill. Wesker, refusing to admit defeat, grabs onto the helicopter in an attempt to bring the whole chopper down into the volcano. The two partners pick RPGs and shoot a pair of anti-tank rockets towards Albert Wesker, ending his life in a cloud of flame and ash. Resident Evil Revelations 2. Resident Evil Revelations 2 is set in 2011, 2 years after the events of the Resident Evil 5 and Wesker's death. Claire Redfield, now a senior member of an anti-bioterror organization, TerraSave, attends a commemoration party in the TerraSave headquarters. Claire meets her new partner, Moira Burton, a daughter of BSAA supervisor Barry Burton. Suddenly, a group of masked assailants raid the headquarters and have Claire, Moira, and many other attendants captured. When Claire comes to, she finds herself stranded in a dilapidated prison with Moira. They are not alone, however, as mysterious, savage, human monsters begin to stalk them through the labyrinthine prison. On their wrists, a bracelet was installed, through which a female known as Overseer directs them around the compound. Making their way to the prison's communication tower, they discover that the prison is located on a remote island, much to their shock and disbelief. From the tower, they send out the distress signal, but doubt it will reach anyone. Escaping the prison area, the Overseer commands them to reach a neighboring town called Wasik, where a group of abductees, Neil, Gabriel, and Pedro, took refuge and plotted an escape plan. Claire, Moira, and other survivors try to escape by repairing an abandoned helicopter, but it goes horribly wrong when the town's alarm system turns on, bringing monsters to their location, with Pedro losing his life in the commotion. After escaping the zombies, Claire spots a mysterious young girl running away from them. Catching up to her, Moira calms the girl down, and the girl introduces herself as Natalia Corda. The two, along with Natalia, continue exploring the island, and along the way, they see a helicopter flying in the sky. The person piloting it turns out to be Gabriel, one of the survivors they met earlier, who managed to fix the old helicopter. However, before he manages to escape the island, the Overseer brings the chopper down, killing Gabriel in the process. During this, Natalia is quietly abducted by an unknown figure and taken to a large tower. After some time, Claire and Moira finally reach the tower and discover the truth behind their abduction. Neil Fisher, one of the survivors from before, is actually a mole and the true mastermind of all the events so far. He sold TerraSave members to the Overseer in exchange for a sample of Ouroboros virus. The Overseer's identity is also revealed as Alex Wesker, the sister of Albert Wesker. Neil tells Alex that he's done his part of the deal and asks her to give him the virus. However, Alex never planned to do so, and instead injects him with the very virus he requested. Neil mutates into a huge Ouroboros tyrant-like monster and attacks Claire, but he is eventually killed by Moira. After the battle, the two use an elevator to reach Alex's hideout, unaware that she had begun her own experiment using Natalia, placing the little girl inside a pod and sending her into the bowels of the facility. Alex greets Claire and Moira with a seemingly sardonic speech, briefly mentioning her brother Albert and his experiments. She then points her gun at Claire, but then moves it and shoots herself instead. In response to Alex's death, in the classical Resident Evil fashion, the facility compound is set to self-destruct in several minutes. Claire and Moira rush towards the exit, but Moira is trapped under falling debris, and Claire is forced to jump out into the ocean below to avoid being blown to pieces. Sometime after the explosion of the tower, Claire was found floating around the island's sea, now known as Sane Island. She is sent to the mainland's hospital where Barry Burton, Moira's father, attempts to question her about his daughter's whereabouts, to no avail. 6 months later, with Moira's SOS message recording in his hand, Barry heads out to the island, alone. The first thing Barry encounters on the island is Natalia, the same girl Moira and Claire encountered. Barry insists that Natalia should stay on his boat, but soon learns that she possesses an uncanny ability to detect the BOWs on the island. even the invisible ones. She directs Barry to a ruined tower where she claims Moira went around 6 months ago. Upon arriving at the tower, a female hooded figure manages to disarm Barry and points her finger at Natalia. The hooded figure is revealed to be Alex Wesker in her mutated state, having survived her attempt 6 months ago. Barry demands to know where his daughter is, as Alex tells him that she killed and buried her. She then summons several Revenant to attack both Barry and Natalia. The two manage to escape and navigate their way through the mines, eventually arriving at the Wasik, where Alex and her creatures stalk them relentlessly. Alex finds an opening to kill Natalia. However, for some reason, she gets scared when Natalia looks at her and flees the scene in terror. It is soon revealed that Natalia was Alex's test subject, and that Alex wanted to transfer her consciousness into Natalia's brain. These experiments granted her the ability to sense BOWs on the island, which she used to help Barry on multiple occasions. Barry and Natalia proceed towards Alex's hideout, with Alex sending messages to Natalia's bracelet, attempting to discourage the two from going deeper. Undaunted, Barry presses on until they reach her hideout, where they find Alex already overdosed with a vial of Ouroboros virus. The final battle starts. Although Alex briefly gains the upper hand, Moira suddenly appears, having survived the explosion 6 months ago, and temporarily brings Alex down. However, they are not safe yet, as Alex continues to mutate. By seemingly good luck, Claire Redfield arrives in the helicopter just in time to rescue them with a sniper rifle. With Claire's assistance, Barry fights the last of Alex's uncontrolled mutation, and in the end, instructs her to use RPG to destroy Alex. Claire successfully does so, mimicking how her brother Chris destroyed Albert Wesker years prior. Safe at last, the four of them head back to the mainland as BSAA troops arrive to exterminate the remaining BOWs on Sane Island. Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 6 is split into 4 different storylines which are all happening simultaneously and often tie with one another throughout the story. So let's start with Leon's campaign first. On June 29, 2013, President of the United States Adam Benford is scheduled to give a talk about the Raccoon City incident in Tall Oak at a university. During his speech, the president is suddenly turned into a zombie as the result of a surprise bioterror attack from an unknown organization. Reluctantly, the president was shot by Leon Kennedy after he tried to kill a Secret Service agent, Helena Harper. Afterward, the two agents quickly fled the scene due to the virus spreading and escaped the building with a police car. However, zombies soon attack the car and flip it over, forcing the two to go inside the sewers. The sewers lead them to the city center where they discover the whole city has been affected. They defend against hordes of zombies until a school bus comes to pick them up. Hunnigan calls Leon and tells him that around 70,000 people have been infected and that the company that did this goes by the name of Neo Umbrella. She then tells Leon and Helena to go to the cathedral. On their way to the cathedral, the bus flips, falling off a huge cliff, killing everyone except for Leon and Helena. They get into the cathedral where they meet more survivors. Helena informs the survivors that there's a hidden passage in the cathedral that they have to open. After they successfully open the secret passage, they encounter a monster that has the ability to turn other people into zombies with its gas. They have no choice but to kill the monster along with everyone else at the cathedral. After this, they head into the passage that leads to an underground facility. There, Helena reveals that she's one of the people responsible for bioterror attack at the university. She explains that National Security Advisor Derek C. Simmons abducted her sister and had used her in order to force Helena to follow his orders. Soon, Helena finds her sister, but before she and Leon can take her to safety, she turns into a crystallid due to being infected with C-virus earlier. Ada Wong enters the scene to help them in the fight against Deborah, and they successfully defeat her. Hunnigan contacts Leon, with Derek C. Simmons standing next to her. Simmons denies his involvement in the incident and instead tells Leon and Helena that they are the prime suspects in the investigation. The two exit the catacombs and witness Tall Oaks getting destroyed with rockets, which reminds Leon of Raccoon City. Hunnigan informs Leon that Simmons went to China, and the two fake their deaths in order to follow him there in secret. Leon and Helena board a plane to China. However, the plane is soon infected, with everyone turning into zombies. Leon barely manages to crash land the plane, and once they are safe, they meet with Sherry Birkin and Jake Muller, Wesker's son. However, their reunion soon gets interrupted by a monster which they join forces to defeat. Sherry reveals that Simmons is actually her commanding officer and tells Leon exactly where they can find him. On their way, they come across Chris Redfield and Pierce Nivens, who Ada Wong, believing that she is the one responsible for the incident, Leon tries to convince Chris not to kill her, and the argument breaks out between the two, which eventually allows Ada to escape. Chris and Pierce chase after her, while Leon and Helena continue their way to Simmons. They soon get to the building where Simmons is, and he instantly orders his men to kill them. Unexpectedly, a stray zombie shoots Simmons with a dart, infecting him with the C virus. Simmons flees to a train where Leon and Helena finally catch up to him. Before they can kill him, he transforms into a four-legged beast, set on killing Leon and Helena. The two defeat him, with the whole train going off the rails and into the water. Just when they thought it was over, the two spot a missile launched by Neo Umbrella. Leon finds out that Jake has the antibodies to cure the C virus and tells Chris to find him, while Chris tells him that Ada has died. Soon, the missile explodes, infecting almost the entire city. Leon and Helena avoid gas by driving through it in a truck. They soon board a BSAA helicopter, but the pilot suddenly mutates and attacks Helena. Leon desperately tries to pilot the helicopter and crashes into their destination, the Quad Towers. Here, they meet and fight Simmons again and eventually manage to bring him down with the help from Ada. Yeah, she is somehow still alive, which we'll explain a bit later during her campaign. Anyway, after the battle, Ada leaves, but Leon decides not to go after her and instead leaves the city on a helicopter with Helena. Chris's campaign. 6 months before the start of Chris's campaign, he was leading Pierce Nivens and the rest of the Alpha team in Adonia in Eastern Europe. After completing their mission there, they found Ada Wong, who said she was a prisoner. They escorted her, but she backstabbed and infected the Alpha team with the C virus, turning them into crystalline cocoons out of which came giant monsters. One of the monsters hit Chris in the head, which caused him to go unconscious and lose memory. Before Chris is killed, Pierce manages to get him to safety. A few months later, we see Chris getting absolutely wasted in a bar. He feels overwhelming guilt about something, but doesn't remember what it is. BSAA member Pierce Nivens has been searching for Chris for months because he wants Chris to return and help him with the ongoing war against bioterrorism. After he is found, Chris accepts Nivens' offer, leading the Alpha team to China. There, they fight against the mutated Javo, which are pretty much just intelligent zombies. After completing the mission and seeing a familiar scene, a bit of Chris's memory returns and he remembers his previous comrades. Chris also remembers that Ada is the one responsible for everyone's death in Adonia, and she is the most likely one behind the terrorist group Neo Umbrella. Chris gets intel that Ada is currently in the city, and he goes to search for her hoping to get his revenge. Chris and Pierce briefly cross paths with Jake and Sherry, comrades from Adonia, but Chris leaves them in order to continue his pursuit of Ada. Along the way, everyone from Chris's team is killed by a big monster called a Lucija, with only Chris and Niven surviving. Chris and Niven soon find and corner Ada in an abandoned building, and this is where Chris's campaign crosses with Leon's, as Leon also arrives on the scene and stops Chris from killing her, as we already discussed in Leon's story. Anyway, the argument between the two allows Ada to escape, and Chris and Pierce keep going after her. But this time, Chris is more composed after his talk with Leon. The two chase her car and end up at the Neo Umbrella aircraft carrier. There, Ada is preparing a missile that will turn everyone on Earth into a zombie, starting with China. Suddenly, a helicopter flies by and shoots at Ada, wounding her and causing her to fall to her death. Pierce takes a sample of the enhanced C virus Ada had with her to bring her back to base. However, at that moment, the missile Ada was preparing launches, even with her dead, engulfing the whole city in C virus. This is when Chris informs Leon that Ada is dead, who in return tells him to find Jake and Sherry for Jake's antibodies. Chris and Pierce enter Neo Umbrella's underwater facility where Jake and Sherry are held. They rescue them, but things get heated when Chris tells Jake that he is the one who killed his father, Albert Wesker. They put their fight off because they have more important things to do right now. It turns out that the missiles were a distraction, and Ada's real plan was to release a giant beast, Heos, into the world. The creature emerges in front of the four, and Chris tells Jake and Sherry to leave the place because they can't afford to let Jake die, while he and Pierce will try to do something to prevent Heos from getting outside. Eventually, the beast overpowers the two, severely injuring Pierce. Just as it's about to kill Chris, Pierce decides to throw away his humanity and use the empowered C virus he found on Ada earlier on himself to save Chris. With his newfound powers gained from injecting the virus, Pierce manages to save Chris, and together they manage to defeat the monster. They make their way to the evacuation pods, but just as they are about to evacuate together, Pierce, knowing he can't be saved, pushes Chris into a pod and sends him out, staying in the facility to die. Chris is then rescued by a helicopter and brought back to the base. Even though he planned on leaving the BSAA after this mission, he decides to stay after what Pierce did for him. continuing his fight against bioterror. Jake's campaign. Jake Mahler was a mercenary, fighting for the rebels of Adonia. Things changed when a new medicine that was supposed to be an energy booster started turning everyone into zombies, except for Jake, who didn't feel anything no matter how many doses he took. Jake was confused over everyone in his base going berserk when a US agent, Sherry Birkin, arrived to explain the truth behind the medicine. It's a new virus developed by Neo Umbrella called C-Virus. She also explains that he is carrying antibodies for the C-Virus, which means he is extremely important for the future of humanity, and that's why she needs his help. Being a mercenary he is, Jake accepts to come with her for $50 million. What they didn't know is that Neo Umbrella sent a monster known as Ustanok to hunt them down. The monster attacks them and they run into Chris Redfield, who gets them to a helicopter to escape. However, Ustanok keeps chasing them, crashing the helicopter they were on. Jake and Sherry jump out, but their parachute rips, causing them to fall. By some miracle, they both survive, and Jake realizes how similar he and Sherry are when she tells him that, just like him, she is not normal and has been injected with a virus when she was a kid, referring to Claire's story in Resident Evil 2. Suddenly, their friendly chatter is cut short by an attack from Neo Umbrella. They try to defend themselves but get overwhelmed when Ustanok arrives again. Ada Wong soon appears and tells Jake about his father, Albert Wesker, a fool who tried to destroy the world before taking him and Sherry away. Jake and Sherry are taken to China, where they have been tested on for 6 months, until one day Jake saw an opportunity to escape along with Sherry. When they reunited, Sherry was happy, but Jake was angry after hearing everything about his father. He feels cursed to have his father's blood run in his veins. Eventually, Sherry gets in contact with the US government, who told her that her comrades are already in China. She and Jake then escape the facility on a motorcycle. They desperately try to escape the attack from Neo Umbrella's forces, but are eventually surrounded. Very briefly, they join forces with Chris and the BSAA before going their separate ways again. On the run, they also encounter Leon, who tells them that he is looking for Sherry's supervisor, Simmons. Sherry gives Leon Simmons' coordinates and they agree to meet there. However, once they arrive to the meeting location, they see Simmons facing off against Leon and Helena. Leon urges them to escape, but they are outnumbered and caught again. They wake up trapped in Neo Umbrella's underwater facility. Chris and Pierce soon arrive to rescue them, and Chris urges them to leave the facility. However, their escape is once again stopped by Ustanok. They get into a brutal fight with the creature, finally killing it and escaping the facility. Afterward, Jake gives his blood to Sherry, and a vaccine is made, containing the C-Virus outbreak. Ada's campaign. The famous underworld spy, Ada Wong, receives a message from Derek Simmons that piques her interest. He tells her that he has some information that will influence her future. Curious, Ada infiltrates a submarine holding this information and finds out that her fingerprint is registered in the security systems. She finds a 6-month-old video asking her to capture Jake Muller and Sherry Birkin, but doesn't remember ever doing this job. As she is leaving the submarine, Simmons informs her that Neo Umbrella will launch a bioterror attack in America and China, and that their leader is Ada Wong, which leaves Ada confused. Wanting to know what Simmons is up to, Ada goes to the US to infiltrate his laboratory. Inside, she meets Leon and Helena and helps them fight off Deborah. Ada goes further into the lab, discovering a tape featuring her birth. Ada immediately understood what this meant. This fake Ada, created by Neo Umbrella, is the one who took that job 6 months ago and is about to throw the whole world into chaos, having real Ada take all the blame. Just like everyone else, Ada heads to China where the next bioterror attack is happening. Listening in on BSAA soldiers' comms, she pinpoints her imposter's location. Along the way, she helps Sherry and Jake fend off the zombies and learns that Leon and Chris are also in the city. She gets on the aircraft carrier, where Chris and Pierce are chasing after fake Ada. Inside, she finds documentation on the creation of the clone. We learn that Ada used to work for Simmons, but she eventually quit. Simmons couldn't handle this and decided to create a perfect clone of Ada. After many failures, he succeeded in creating Ada by injecting C-Virus and Ada's DNA into Carlo Radames, a scientist working for him. Ada notices Carla dead on the floor, being shot by a chopper in Chris's campaign. However, when she gets close to inspect her, Carla gets up and mutates. Carla starts thinking that she's the real Ada, talking about how she will be the queen of the world. Although Carla becomes a huge monster, Ada manages to eventually take her down. After the battle, she hops into a nearby helicopter, but instead of leaving the city, she flies right back in. Her helicopter flies through the zombie-infected city when she spots Leon and Helena having problems with Simmons. She rescues them, and the three of them head to the quad tower for a final showdown against Simmons. After killing him, Leon and Helena leave, while Ada stays to do one more thing. She goes into the towers where Carla's lab is located and makes sure to destroy everything Carla worked on before leaving. Ada then exits the burning laboratory as she already accepts another job. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Resident Evil 7 is set in mid-2017 somewhere in the southern United States. It features a new protagonist named Ethan Winters, a civilian who offers fewer combat skills than most of the previous Resident Evil protagonists. The story begins with Ethan traveling to Louisiana after receiving a request from his wife Mia to meet her there. Mia has been missing for 3 years and was presumed dead. However, when Ethan arrived to the abandoned farmhouse in Louisiana, he found her imprisoned in the basement. Mia tells him that they must escape quickly before Daddy finds them. Ethan gets a call from a woman named Zoe telling him that he shouldn't be here and that there is a way to escape through the attic. Along the way, Mia suddenly goes berserk and almost kills Ethan, who, in order to defend himself, is forced to kill her. Afterward, he gets surprise attacked and knocked out by Jack Baker. After some time, Ethan wakes up sitting at the table with the Baker family, consisting of Jack, his wife Marguerite, and their son Lucas, and an elderly woman in a wheelchair. The Bakers try to feed him cooked human parts and begin torturing him because he didn't want to eat. However, they get distracted by a phone call and leave the room, enabling Ethan to break free. He tries to find a way out of the house with Zoe periodically helping him, revealing that she's Baker's daughter. Soon, a deputy police officer comes to investigate the house, and through the window, Ethan tries to warn him about the Bakers. The police officer doesn't believe anything Ethan says and soon gets killed by Jack. Ethan engages in a battle against Jack, but quickly finds out that Jack is near invincible and can heal any wound. Jack then chases Ethan around the house, and the two have a showdown, with Ethan finally killing Jack with a chainsaw, obtaining the key to escape the house. After leaving the house, Ethan finds out from Zoe that Mia, his wife, is still alive since she has been infected with some sort of virus, similar to the Baker family. Zoe is also infected with the virus herself, and she wants to escape from the Bakers. But for that to happen, Ethan has to cure their infections with a special serum. Ethan heads to the old house to find the ingredients for the serum, where he is forced to battle and kill Marguerite. After retrieving the ingredients, Ethan starts to have strange visions of a young girl. He soon returns to meet with Zoe, but is instead contacted by Lucas, who has captured both Mia and Zoe. Lucas forces Ethan to go through a bunch of traps he set up. However, Ethan already knew about the traps from a cassette he watched before, so he manages to outsmart Lucas, forcing him to escape. He then frees Zoe and Mia and makes 2 doses of serum. At that moment, a mutated version of Jack attacks them, and Ethan is forced to use one of the serums to kill Jack permanently. With only 1 dose left, Ethan must choose whether to cure Mia or Zoe. Depending on the choice you make during this part of the game, the story will branch into 2 different scenarios. However, in order to make it simpler, we'll just cover the canon ending, which sees Ethan saving his wife Mia. Ethan and Mia escape on a boat, while Zoe stays behind and gives them a bitter farewell. They come across a huge ship where they get attacked by the girl Ethan saw in his vision, Evelyn. Ethan is knocked out and has a vision of Jack, who warns him that Evelyn has the power to brainwash anybody she infects, and that's how she turned him and his family into monsters. Mia wakes up on the big ship and begins looking for Ethan. She receives visions of Evelyn claiming that Mia is her mother, but Mia has no recollection of her. Evelyn makes Mia watch a videotape to restore her memory. We learn that in 2010, Mia began working as a researcher for The Connections, a crime syndicate specializing in production of bioweaponry, and she kept this secret from Ethan. A few years later, Mia took on the job of a handler for the first successful E-type bioweapon, known simply as Evelyn. However, while Evelyn was being transported to Central America, she broke free and infected Mia to force her into being her mother. After watching the tape, Mia rescues Ethan and hands him a vial containing Evelyn's DNA. She resists Evelyn's control for long enough to seal Ethan out of the ship so she can't hurt him. Ethan leaves the ship and makes his way into an abandoned salt mine where he discovers a secret laboratory. In the lab, Ethan learns that those infected by Evelyn suffer from insanity, powerful regenerative abilities, and extreme mutations. Evelyn also has an obsession with having her own family, which is the reason why she infected Mia and the Bakers. Here, it's also revealed that Lucas is working for the Connections as well, and is only pretending to be insane like the rest of his family, when in reality, he has been given serum that protects him from Evelyn's mind control. Using the lab equipment and the DNA Mia gave him, Ethan creates the toxin capable of killing Evelyn. He then goes through the tunnels, which lead him back to the farmhouse. There, Evelyn assaults Ethan with hallucinations and visions to keep him away, but Ethan overcomes them and injects Evelyn with the toxin. At that moment, it is revealed that Evelyn was the old woman in the wheelchair from the start of the game all along. The toxin causes Evelyn to mutate into a huge monster, which attacks Ethan once again. Suddenly, a weapon falls from the sky, and Ethan gets a call from an unknown person telling him to use it. Ethan does so, and finally kills Evelyn for good. He is then rescued by the Blue Umbrella Alpha team led by Chris Redfield, and both he and Mia are taken away in a helicopter. Not a Hero. Not a Hero is a DLC for Resident Evil 7, and it takes place right after Ethan is saved by Chris at the end of the game. This time, the story revolves around BSAA Captain Chris Redfield, who is part of a mission to wipe out the mold super colony in Louisiana. Fresh from saving Ethan Winters, he receives orders to arrest Lucas Baker, who is hiding at the Abercrombie salt mine and is involved in illegal bioweapons research. The rest of Redfield's squad has been declared missing after being captured by Baker, and he must rescue them as a secondary objective. End of Zoe. End of Zoe is another DLC for Resident Evil 7, and it takes place after Zoe stayed behind at the pier where Ethan and Mia left her. Here, Zoe is calcified by Evelyn in retaliation for helping Ethan and Mia escape, but she manages to survive. Ethan calls for help for Zoe, and BSAA operators in Blue Umbrella gear come to her aid. She is trapped in a crystal shape and is found by Joe, her uncle. He knocks out the soldiers and brings one to his house along with Zoe, where the soldier gives him the location of the cure. Joe manages to get the cure. However, as it isn't a full dose, it doesn't work. The soldier informs Joe where a full dose could be and says that he can lead them there, but the swamp man burns the house down and kills the soldier. Afterward, Joe and Zoe travel away on a boat to search for the cure. Joe is able to synthesize a cure, but before he can administer it to Zoe, the swamp man appears again and takes her into the water. Joe follows and discovers that the monster is actually Jack Baker, having regenerated once again. Jack stuffs Joe into a coffin and throws him into the water. Joe later washes up on a lake near the ruined Baker estate, where Jack is hiding. He follows Jack's trail into the house and squares off against him, finishing him off for good. Joe administers the cure to Zoe, and several BSAA operators come in order to get them to safety. Resident Evil Village. The story of Resident Evil Village takes place in February 2021, exactly 3 years and 6 months after the events of Resident Evil 7. Ethan Winters and his wife Mia have moved to the Eastern Europe, where they have been living for years. During this time, Ethan took courses in military training, and they had a child named Rosemary. The Baker House incident was covered up as a gas leak that killed everyone in the family. At the very beginning of the game, Mia tells the local story, Village of Shadows, to Rose. The story of a delinquent girl who ran away from her mother and encountered different creatures that gifted her various items. However, when she approached the last creature, she forcefully took the item from it and was punished for it. Before Mia could finish the story, Rose falls asleep. Later on, Ethan and Mia have an argument about the events that happened in Louisiana and how Mia wants to forget it. However, suddenly, Mia is gunned down by the unknown attackers shooting her from outside the house. Before Ethan can realize what had happened, he's approached by Chris Redfield and learns that he and his squad are responsible for the shooting, but he doesn't get any explanation from Chris. He and Rose are then taken as captives. Sometime later, Ethan awakes in an overturned convoy, with the guards dead and Rose nowhere to be seen. He sets off to a nearby trail and stumbles onto an old shack. After exploring his surroundings, Ethan comes across a large, recently deserted village. He soon encounters a villager named Gregory, who holds Ethan at gunpoint, asking him who he is and who sent him. However, before Ethan could respond, the house gets surrounded by werewolf-like creatures, which we learn are called lycans. Gregory offers a handgun to Ethan before he is suddenly killed by a lycan, while Ethan is dragged down to the basement by another. A creature attacks Ethan and bites off 2 of his fingers, but he somehow manages to kill it. Afterwards, Ethan overhears a radio transmission telling any survivors to come to Louisa's house, so that's where he's headed next. On the way, he comes across an old hag who asks if he is the child's father. When he says that he is, the woman proclaims that Rose was brought to the village by the village deity, Mother Miranda, and as soon as she was brought, the village has fallen into darkness. She also warns him that Rose is in great danger. Eventually, Ethan comes across two surviving villagers, Elena and her injured father, Leonardo, who are hoping to join the rest of the survivors at Louisa's house, but no one is letting them in. As the lichens start to lurk nearby, Ethan manages to climb over Louisa's house and open the gate for them, and the group is welcomed into the home by Louisa. She then guides them through the house where they meet the other survivors, the drunken Anton, the mourning Roxana, and the crippled Sebastian. Ethan asks what happened to the village, and Louisa tells them that they were once a quiet, devout community, but then the monsters came and attacked them. Roxana suggests that they pray to Mother Miranda, and they all join hands in prayer. But suddenly, Leonardo roars in pain before attacking and instantly killing Louisa with his machete, as well as knocking down a lantern that causes a fire. Ethan beckons Elena to escape as Leonardo, slowly transforming into lichen, kills the rest of the survivors. Leonardo then pounces at Ethan before Elena fires at her father with a shotgun blast. The two decide to escape upwards to the attic, but Leonardo, somehow still alive, calls out to Elena in pain. Despite Ethan's warnings, Elena quickly runs to him and the two are separated. Elena tells him to go and to save his daughter before the floor collapses and she falls into the fiery depths below. Ethan angrily leaves the burning house through the window as he muses that the people keep dying around him. Ethan then makes his way to the nearby castle and manages to open the stone door using two crests found around the village. He heads into the castle, but is soon captured by a man with seemingly electromagnetic powers. Ethan is taken to a meeting with Mother Miranda and the other house's lords, Lady Alcina Dimitrescu, the vampiric countess of the castle, Donna Beneviento, the puppeteer, Salvatore Moreau, a heavily mutated fish-like hunchback, and Carl Heisenberg, the man who captured him. Dimitrescu and Heisenberg argue who should have him, with her wanting to kill Ethan and offers his cups of blood to Miranda, and Heisenberg wanting to put on an entertaining show for everyone to enjoy. Miranda eventually decides that Ethan's fate belongs to Heisenberg, and then gives Ethan a 10-second head start before sending lichens after him. Ethan runs away and manages to survive, eventually reaching the front of the castle. There he meets the Duke, a merchant who offers him weapons and supplies for the journey ahead. As he enters the castle in hopes of finding Rose, he is captured by the Dimitrescu's daughters, Bella, Cassandra, and Daniela instead. They proceed to drag him to meet their mother, who is surprised that Ethan survived Heisenberg's game. She then orders her daughters to hang Ethan up with hook chains while she goes to inform Miranda of this development. While they are gone, Ethan manages to free himself by forcefully ripping his hands through the hook. After traversing through areas of the castle, he comes across the Duke, who somehow conveniently appears in various locations around the castle. Eventually, after some exploring, Ethan is attacked and caught by Bella, one of Dimitrescu's daughters. During the fight, one of Ethan's stray bullets breaks the windows and lets the cold air in. Realizing that cold air is Bella's weakness, he eventually manages to kill her. Continuing his way through the castle, Ethan is caught by the Countess, and she proceeds to violently slam him against the ground, sending him to the dungeons below. He navigates the dungeons, but gets his hand cut off by Dimitrescu's sharp claws. However, miraculously, Ethan manages to reattach it and continue his journey. Along the way, he comes across both of Dimitrescu's remaining daughters, Cassandra and Daniela, and manages to kill them both by finding the way to let cold air into the room. After this, Ethan manages to acquire the Dagger of Death's Flowers, a blade laced with poisons from around Europe, and which is said to hold the power to kill monsters and demons. He manages to stab the Countess with it, and she suddenly mutates into a grotesque, dragon-like creature. The two battle on the castle's rooftop, and after a long battle, the Countess is finally defeated. Ethan grabs a glass flask that emerges and heads out of the castle. In an underground passage, he meets the old hag again, chanting the same prayers as before. Ethan demands her to tell him what is going on and where Miranda took Rose. She laughs, telling him that Rose will be sacrificed as a life for a life. She points out that the crest of the four families may open a path that he seeks. Ethan stares at the emblem, eerily similar to the logo of the Umbrella Corporation. He then travels to the altar, where he meets the Duke once more. The Duke reveals to the horrified Ethan that the glass flask he received contains the head of his daughter, Rose. However, Duke clarifies that Rose can still be saved, as her powers enable her essence to remain. He then reveals to Ethan that he can acquire other flasks, containing parts of Rose, by confronting the other lords, Beneviento, Moreau, and Heisenberg. Ethan decides to head to House Beneviento first. Upon entering the house, he starts exploring and finds the second flask sitting on Beneviento's doll, Angie. However, before he could grab it, the doll disappears, and so does his weapons. This portion of the game is fully puzzle-based, similar to older Resident Evil titles, and has little to no action. After solving a bunch of these puzzles and escaping the grotesque baby-looking creatures, Ethan reaches the top side of the house, where he's greeted by Beneviento and Angie. She pleads with him not to leave and sends the other dolls to attack him. After repelling the dolls and finding Angie in hide-and-seek multiple times, he comes to his senses and realizes that he has successfully killed Beneviento. He retrieves her flask of rosemary before leaving the house. Ethan's next stop is Moreau's reservoir, where he needs to confront Lord Moreau. He quickly finds his way there and manages to retrieve the flask from an unsuspecting Moreau. However, he sees Ethan and asks him what he was gonna do with Miranda's special child. Moreau then reveals that he has blocked Ethan's exit, but the latter manages to escape as acidic blockades. While trying to escape the reservoir, Ethan finds a tent which contains equipment used for research. While inspecting it, he's suddenly attacked by a Hound Wolf Squad member and confronted by Chris. Ethan angrily exclaims that Chris killed Mia, and he should just finish him off too. However, before Chris can talk to Ethan, one of the team's members notices motion readings near the area and advises Chris that they should move on, fearing that Miranda knows their location. The three notice the mutated fish is heading their way, and they are soon separated by the large fish and thrown into the water. Ethan climbs on a dock alongside Moreau, who is revealed to be the large fish creature. Ethan proceeds to battle him at the dried-up fishing village and manages to kill him. Soon after, Ethan arrives at the stronghold where he battles Urias, a giant lichen. After killing him, he retrieves the final flask. He puts all 4 flasks in the altar and opens up a way to Heisenberg Factory. He gets inside and is greeted by Heisenberg. The Lord tells Ethan that he's being played and that it's all a test to see if he's strong enough to be part of Miranda's family. Ethan angrily exclaims that he doesn't want to be part of her family, to which Heisenberg agrees and explains that even Miranda is frightened of Rose's potential. He then offers Ethan to team up and save Rose together so he could use her to kill Miranda. However, Ethan rejects his offer, saying that his daughter is not a weapon for his usurping scheme. Heisenberg is disappointed by this and kicks Ethan down to the bottom of his factory. Ethan is then chased around by Sturm, a creature with a propeller as a torso. He manages to evade it, but finds himself deeper into the factory where he fights off several of Heisenberg's mechanical creatures. As he navigates his way through the factory, Heisenberg shares how Miranda forcefully took several children, including himself, as part of her experiments to create strong servants. He shares his desire to achieve power and to free himself from Miranda's grasp. After reaching the top of the factory, Ethan is attacked again by Heisenberg, who mutates into a large biomechanical creature. The mutated Heisenberg tells Ethan to stay away before knocking him down again to the bottom of his factory. Down there, Ethan is subdued and disarmed by Chris, who has infiltrated the factory and is in the middle of planting explosives beneath it. Chris starts to explain that the Mia he shot back in their house was a disguised Miranda, who has shape-shifting powers. Ethan angrily demands to know why he was never informed of this, only for Chris to shout that Ethan would want to be involved. Chris continues explaining that Miranda herself is insane and that monsters in the village is her life's work, as they are her experimentations with the mole. Chris also reveals that Miranda is now in possession of the flasks. He then provides Ethan with a metal polymer tank that he could use to battle Heisenberg, while promising him that they will get his daughter back. Ethan takes the artillery and rides the elevator up to the surface, where he faces against the mutated Heisenberg once again. After an intense battle, Heisenberg overturns the tank and is about to kill Ethan, but he's momentarily distracted by an explosion in the factory. Heisenberg's enraged about the loss of his robot army that he wanted to use in his war against Miranda. Ethan is forced to fight Heisenberg on foot before the latter creates an electrical storm that enables Ethan to reacquire the tank and use it to fire at Heisenberg's weak spot, finally finishing him off. After the battle, Ethan informs Chris that he has defeated Heisenberg. However, he is immediately confronted by Miranda. She explains to him that Rose is not only Evelyn's successor, but her true, complete form, so she must have her. Miranda then begins to shift into several forms and reveals herself to be the old hag all along. With Ethan now enraged, Miranda finally makes her move and attacks him, instantly ripping his heart out. Ethan dies at her feet, and she leaves to start the ceremony to revive her daughter. A member of the Hound Wolf Squad confirms Ethan's death to Chris. Chris recaps the situation to his team. He admits he was careless in thinking they killed Miranda under the guise of Mia, which resulted in Miranda faking her death, attacking Ethan's convoy, and kidnapping Rose. Knowing that Miranda needs to be put down after their 3-year investigation, he initiates a full-on attack with his squad against Miranda in order to avenge Ethan. The team moves in the village from different directions, with Chris arriving from the ruins of Louisa's house. They battle the Lycan army and destroy the large mass of mold using support fire from Chris and Lobo. The destruction opens a large hole that Chris traverses under while ordering his team to remain above ground. He then manages to find the large mold root and attach an N2 neutron bomb to it. However, before he detonates it, he says that he needs to kill Miranda first. Chris orders his men to have eyes on Miranda, but they keep their distances as he heads to her lab. Inside the lab, Chris learns several pieces of information regarding Miranda's experiments with the mold and her past. She was a biologist whose daughter died due to the Spanish flu. In her mourning, she decided to venture into the nearby caves to die only to find the mold root by pure chance. She then began experimenting with the mold, developing the K2 parasite and becoming immortal. Over the years, Miranda's experiments with the mold were all in an attempt to revive her dead daughter. As it turns out, the 4 lords were 4 candidates who were unable to be suitable hosts for Eva. Miranda then posed as the village deity alongside the 4 lords while secretly using the villagers for her experiments. She also collaborated with the Connections, a crime syndicate, to create Evelyn by lending the mold and some of Eva's DNA, but Evelyn was yet another unsuitable host. The syndicate then informed her of Rosemary's existence, and Rosemary proved to be a perfect host for Eva. One of Miranda's students was also Oswell E. Spencer, who would later go on to found the Umbrella Corporation. While exploring, Chris notices a locked door and breaks it open, where he finds the real Mia alive after confirming that Miranda is at the cemetery site. Mia is angry at Chris for claiming that her family would be safe and demands to know where her husband and daughter are. He tells her that Ethan is gone, but there's still time to save Rose. However, Mia tells Chris that Ethan isn't gone yet, and that he doesn't understand how special Ethan truly is. Ethan finds himself wandering across a cold wasteland, where he's taunted by Evelyn, who tells him that he is dead. Ethan assumes it was Miranda who killed him, but Evelyn tells him that he has always been dead. She then questions Ethan how it wasn't weird to him that he always survived no matter how much he got hurt. Evelyn tells him that years ago, back in Louisiana, Jack Baker had killed him. As it turns out, Ethan was infected from the start. The only thing that was keeping him alive was the mold. He wakes up inside the Duke's carriage. The Duke had rescued him and is bringing him to Miranda, knowing that Ethan would want to fight her one last time. He notes to Ethan that his body is falling apart, but acknowledges his drive to save Rose. Upon arriving at the ceremonial site, the Duke warns Ethan that he's at the point of no return, but Ethan remains determined. Ethan arrives just in time for the child's rebirth. But to Miranda's surprise, Rose is born instead of her daughter, Eve. Ethan and Miranda wrestle over Rose, but Miranda manages to absorb her within herself as she mutates to fight Ethan. Ethan fights and manages to defeat Miranda once and for all. Rose emerges from her remains, but Ethan loses consciousness as his body and mold begin deteriorating following Miranda's death. Chris manages to reawaken Ethan and helps guide him and Rosemary outside the site so he could detonate the bomb. What remains of Miranda's consciousness merges with the mold root into a larger berserk form and pursues the 3. Knowing that he's dying, Ethan hands Rose and his coat to Chris, while telling him to keep her safe and teach her to be strong. He then grabs the detonator and the mold separates him from Chris and Rose. Chris boards his transport with Rose and Mia notices that Ethan is not with them and demands to know where he is. Meanwhile, Ethan uses the last of his strength to trigger the detonator, destroying himself, the mold roots, and the village. The conclusion of the Village of Shadows story from the beginning is shown. The girl is captured by a witch, but later rescued by her mother as her father stays behind and sacrifices himself while fighting the witch. Years later, we see grown-up Rose boarding the bus en route to the cemetery to visit her father's grave, with the Village of Shadows book in tow. She wishes him a belated happy birthday, having missed the previous week due to being tested on. Shadows of Rose. Shadows of Rose is the DLC for Resident Evil 8 that takes place in the year 2037, 16 years following Ethan's sacrifice in the village. In that time, Rose has been raised in protective custody under the US government, seeing her mother Mia and Chris Redfield only sparingly. Over her life, she has suffered from persecution over her nature as a superhuman. Children bully her constantly for being a freak, and even her teachers must be reassured that she isn't dangerous. These experiences have left Rose traumatized and self-loathing, blaming her own nature for causing the bullying in the first place. On the advice of Charlie K. Graham, Rose is brought over to a government lab which is handling a surviving piece of mold's core recovered from Eastern Europe. On his instructions, Rose is to attempt to mentally link with the core and find a purifying crystal which can remove her powers completely. After bonding with it, Rose finds herself in the realm of consciousness, a mental representation of the core's archived memories. Rose wanders through the dungeons of Castle Dimitrescu, where she finds a number of trapped girls who are duplicates of herself. The girls are killed as the ground beneath them turns into mold and consumes them, but Rose escapes upstairs, chased by face-eaters. As she reaches the castle's halls, she stumbles upon the masked Duke, preying on another Rose copy who tried and failed to recover the crystal. When Masked Duke spots Rose, he orders his face-eaters to hunt her. During the chase, Rose is offered advice by a mysterious entity who acts as her guardian angel, alerting her to dangers by writing instructions on the walls. Rose names it Michael after Saint Michael the Archangel. Rose continues to navigate through the castle, now searching for 3 metal masks, bronze, silver, and gold, which will reward her with the crystal. With Michael's help, she begins tapping into her powers while Michael becomes weaker due to third-party interference. After using all 3 masks, Rose finds that the crystal was a decoy all along and is sent down to the dungeons as a prisoner, where Masked Duke brings out his most powerful face-eaters. Unable to fight them, Michael compels Rose to jump off a cliff and escape. Rose wakes up just outside the garden of House Beneviento. She is lured in by a number of stuffed monkeys based on the one she had as a baby. As she boards the elevator, her connection with Michael is severed by an unknown entity, and she is taken to the basement of the property. There, she is robbed of her possessions and expected to perform a series of bizarre puzzles. As she completes these puzzles, Rose gets a phone call from the dark-haired girl, who teases that her mommy will be mad if she knew they were playing together. Rose makes her way to the ground floor, but her safety becomes an illusion as she gets reduced to a few inches in size. While navigating the hallways, Rose is forced to evade doll search parties and the full-sized Mia mannequin. All of these monsters are commanded by the girl, who is trying to take control of the realm of consciousness. Rose soon finds herself in a house, which she learns is the one her parents had when she was a baby. With brief help from Michael, Rose is led through the house and finally begins to feel like she knew her father as she learns the various things he did for her as a baby. However, this happiness is cut short by the dark-haired girl, who reveals herself to be Evelyn. Evelyn is disgusted by Rose, who she considers weak, unloved, and undeserving of Mia's attention. Evelyn's powers leads Rose back to the entrance of House Beneviento, where the two have a showdown. Although Rose manages to momentarily suppress Evelyn with her abilities, the former is far stronger than her. Before Evelyn can kill Rose, Michael makes his appearance and throws himself in front of Rose, who's thrown out of the house and off a cliff. Rose comes into the village, where she realizes Michael is in fact the fragment of Ethan's consciousness preserved within this realm. Fearing he is now gone for good, Rose continues on her own. Finding a hole in the ground, she jumps down and discovers that the core itself is growing new Rose duplicates. Soon, she finally finds the mastermind behind these experiments, the archived consciousness of Mother Miranda. Having studied the mold for decades, the copy of Miranda is well aware she's imprisoned within the realm and has spent the past 16 years trying to escape it. It's here that Rose learns that her previous encounter with Charlie Graham was completely imaginary and that it was all part of Miranda's plan to bring her into the realm. Before Miranda can kill Rose, Ethan appears again and helps Rose escape. After escaping, Rose finds herself in a barren plain populated only by the crystal. Although she's now having second thoughts about carrying out her wish, Rose interacts with it and drains herself of her power. With Rose no longer being a threat, Miranda takes the opportunity to strike, but Ethan interferes with it once again. Now faced with a crisis where her powers are absolutely essential, Rose interacts with the crystal once more to save her father. In her showdown against Miranda, Rose gains greater and greater powers, even leeching them from Miranda until her consciousness completely perishes. Now having a moment of peace, Rose shares one last moment with Ethan and returns to the real world, having chosen to keep her abilities. Following this, she takes a bus to Ethan's grave, where the agent picks her up.